for DJ. His footwork's incredible.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
Gritty three. Rebound picked up by Newton. 16 straight misses. Cartman inside. The dunk. The foul. Count it. And he hung on the rim for safety.
365 Sports is presented by IdealMRI.com. High-quality MRIs for $497 or less. IdealMRI.com. Your health is important, so is your budget.
Here's Edey with 5 on the shot clock. Edey inside. Oh, what a move by Edey. That's what you call a great up and under.
365 Sports is also brought to you by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, protecting Texans since 1952.
Under 2 minutes to go. Sears guarded by Hunter. Sears lets it fly and knocks it down. Mark Sears.
Have you subscribed to our YouTube channel? Search 365 Sports on YouTube. Brought to you by TFNB, your bank for life.
Nice and easy. Burns. So gets rocked. Burns. Another for DJ Burns. You're not going to play horse with him, I'll tell you that.
365 Sports is turbocharged by Unite Private Networks. Find out more at uniteprivatenetworks.com.
Rylan Griffin in traffic. Oh, nice pass. Finds Sears. Excellent ball movement there.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
Smokey is out again today. He's up in Dallas. Had a little procedure this morning. He's doing great. Normal thing. But Craig, glad to see you back. And we missed you both yesterday. And I'll just tell you that everybody watching the show, everybody involved in the show, we love you guys. And I know it's been a really hard time here over the last few months and the last really year with your uncle. But glad to see you back today.
Hey, man, thanks. Rest in peace to my Uncle Robert. Great man, the best, and unfortunately has dealt with cancer and a battle with cancer now for quite a while, all this past year, going back later than that as well. And, finally just got to the end of the road here. I guess that was yesterday. Time's just kind of distorted right now for me. It's kind of weird, but that was yesterday. So he finally said goodbye, but we all got to say goodbye to him prior to that. I feel good about kind of where things were at the end. But it's never easy. The big C sucks. Everybody who's dealt with that in their family, with friends, workers, coworkers, knows just what a terrible thing it is. So I'm not really, breaking any news about how awful it is, but it was a sad deal, and I'm just glad to be back. And just thanks for the support. I appreciate it. Just tough times, but we all go through it. And he was a great man, and that's what I'm going to hold with me. So rest in peace, Uncle Rob. And we'll talk about him more, I'm sure, as time goes on.
Absolutely. Well, glad to have you back, Craig. Yesterday, we came up with a new way of doing the stories. We are going to call it from now on, because what you may see it on the air, but when Smokey comes in with this gigantic stack of papers that he prints out because he's old school. You see, he's not here today. Can you give the wide shot again? There's no paper on the desk. Craig and I are younger, so we just use our laptops, but Smokey has these papers, and so we're going to call this the Smokestack, and it's actually going to be brought to you by SeatGeek, who has just come aboard, so welcome aboard to SeatGeek here on the show. But we're going to go through. Garrett is going to feed us the stories, and then we are going to comment on them. And this is going to be kind of a daily thing. We're going to have some fun with it. It's going to go high energy, which is what we like to do. So, Garrett, first story, what do you got?
So we are basketball heavy today, and we are going to start off with the transfer portal and Haley Van Lith leaving LSU after one season as a grad transfer. Could have gone to the WNBA, but elected to be back for the fifth.
Haley Van Lith will be a meme for the rest of her life, and good for her, because she was very self-aware of what was going on. I'm curious to see where she winds up. She's a very good player. She's just not as, able to defend Caitlin Clark, of which she is everyone. You know, I'm not sure LeBron would do as well as he thinks he could against Caitlin Clark. I say that in jest. She's just such a good shooter and shoots from anywhere. Like Hailey Van Lith was like, what am I supposed to do? She's 3 feet past where normally I would go pick up a defender or go pick up an offensive player, and she just stopped and chucked up the ball. Again, what do you do? So Hailey Van Lith on her way into the portal.
Yeah, I mean, a big name in women's college basketball, which is receiving a lot of attention right now. She was great at Louisville, not as great at LSU. Obviously had a bigger, starry supporting cast surrounding her that took away some of her shine, but still a good player. Obviously did not end her LSU time the way that they had all hoped for, which was her becoming basically a meme, thanks to Caitlin Clark. And LSU not able to defend that championship and make it 2 in a row. Is weird, though. I mean, she made a big deal about wanting to play for Kim Mulkey, or that was the connection there, was that Kim had recruited her a long time ago, and they got that opportunity, and I just figured that they'd finally got that opportunity, that certainly she'd be back for a second year if she was going to come back to women's college basketball, but that was sort of surprising to see her name go back into the portal. So she just joins the, I guess, average that we have now these days in college sports of being on at least 3 teams. So she's another one that it feels like almost on a daily basis we're talking about somebody in some sport who's going to their 3rd school, and so she joins that long line of athletes doing so. Curious to see what the market's like for her. Saw a lot of jokes about, oh, watch out South Carolina, as though she's title hopping. But, yeah, it doesn't appear like South Carolina's probably got room for her, and LSU's recruited really well, so I don't know that it's a major loss for them in the long run. But she's definitely a big name, and so curious to see where she ends up ultimately, but surprised that her stint at LSU was so short.
Yeah, go ahead, Garrett.
And another one that's on their 3rd school right now is Dane Danger. Went from Baylor to Illinois, now entered the transfer portal, and finds himself at Memphis trying to save Penny Hardaway's job.
Yeah, so he's the 2nd transfer Penny's gotten this week, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, so Dane Danger on his 3rd school, and I was surprised. I mean, again, you can't really be surprised, but he appeared down the stretch to really be kind of a valuable player for Illinois.
Yeah.
But this is the nature of the beast now, and he's on his way to Memphis. And Penny Hardaway, they've given him a lot of resources, and he has not hit any of the benchmarks so far. And there was a lot of excitement about their favorite son coming back to coach them. And he's a very recognizable name, but to this point, none of that has paid dividends.
Yeah, I mean, they've really struggled at times. I think Dane had a really good postseason, as you mentioned, or at least heard his name a lot. Obviously started off at Baylor, which is why we know him initially. But, yeah, another example of 3rd school. So, again, that's just becoming more and more commonplace. And would have said that 10, 15 years ago, people would have been thinking, what are you talking about? 3 schools and that being, the average. But, I mean, again, it's almost on a daily basis. So he's obviously flipped that run at Illinois into probably getting a pretty nice little NIL, sack of cash from Memphis, I suppose. And we'll see what his opportunity looks like. I don't know enough about their roster to say anything informative on how he fits in or whatnot. But he can definitely help. And, yeah, good luck to Dane Danger.
And then one more, we have Bronny James elected that he is going to put his name out for the for the NBA draft while keeping eligibility open. I know Eric Musselman, the new head coach at USC, was out today, and he was asked about Bronny. He said he's trying to reach out to him, that he would love him to have him come back, but another big name out there on the market.
Yeah, well, you notice that's not transfer portal yet.
Yes.
And I'm not surprised about this because the goal was always to play with his dad, I suppose, or that's what they want to do. But 5 points a game this year and coming off the heart condition, I'm not sure if he's going to get the draft grade back that he wants. But Eric Musselman's an NBA guy, and I think that he is someone who, the James family would respect and not I mean, I know it's not complete. It's not up to them. They'll only be at USC for a little while, but that he's probably not going to have to do as much work as other coaches would do to convince Bronny to stay if he does do that and keep him out of the portal. But I guess we'll see what happens. I don't think his draft grade is going to be all that great.
Well, I mean, if you want to guarantee that he could basically be on his dad's team, then he's not going like in the lottery. So, I mean, depending on where the Lakers pick, I don't know what their situation looks like either. I mean, it seems like he'd be available, if not undrafted. I don't know where he is in the eyes of scouts. I've barely even seen him play. I mean, I don't think most of us have barely – I think most of us have barely seen him play at this point. Nothing that blows you away statistically. I know he dealt, obviously, with the medical issue. And, we're talking about him because he's LeBron James's kid. I mean, that's why we're talking about him. There's no other reason why we're talking about him. We're not talking about him because of some stellar showing in the Elite Eight. We're not talking about him because he's got a chance of being the number 1 overall pick. We're talking about him because he's Bronny, son of LeBron. And, I think it's a situation where obviously programs will be enticed by kind of the star backing or power that I guess comes with that. But I don't know how enticed they'll be by his game. I don't know where he sits in people's eyes. But sure, test the draft waters, and I'll be curious to see what the reviews and what the responses are like. But, yeah, I don't think this really makes shockwaves in the NBA, this announcement. And obviously he's keeping his options open. So if you were hoping to maybe see him go play on the hilltop and reunite with his former college coach, I guess there's a better than zero chance right now.
Yeah, sticking with NBA right now, we have Jared Butler, former Baylor guard, getting a 3-year deal with the Washington Wizards. So good for Jared Butler finally getting his flowers.
Yeah, he's played really well for the Wizards this year. And, he had a 2-way contract for, it felt like forever. I know he's only been in the league for 2-3 years now. But he's had a 2-way contract now, has played his way to being a full-time NBA player, which everybody always kind of thought was in the cards. But it's kind of a weird deal how the NBA works now. It's kind of like when you get these 2-way contracts, it's being in AAA ball, but they call you up all the time and tease you a little bit more. So glad to see JB getting that 3-year contract. We'll see if we can get him on the show to talk about that. He's always a great guest, and we have not talked to him in quite a while.
Well, he was arguably the MVP of their national championship run. I think he's a guy who was, for a lot of people, on the Mount Rushmore, or is on the Mount Rushmore of Baylor athletes, that if you were to put that together and you were trying to figure out who would represent basketball, I think there's a number of people that would put Jared Butler's name out there. Obviously a key component of their national title, and just a great all-around dude based on everything that we got to know about him. Really solid player that I think you hoped and expected would have a nice NBA career, and it's been a little topsy-turvy at times, but great to see that he's getting this new contract with the Washington Wizards. So that's a big deal, and good for him. And hopefully it's the first of, or not the first, but hopefully it's one of a few that he'll get down the way. But, definitely flipping a 2-way into a 3-year contract is a big deal, and that should be celebrated, and hopefully he can capitalize on it even further. But that's great to see for Jared Butler.
And we are now to the point where it is AP award season, and Zach Edey has been named the National Player of the Year by the AP poll.
Not a shock. He scores a lot of points. He gets a lot of rebounds. He's the hardest guy to defend in all of college basketball right now, and he's in the Final Four, and he's been playing like a madman since March Madness started.
Do you enjoy watching him?
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
I'm an old school guy when it comes to centers, so I miss that element of basketball.
I just know there's definitely a backlash to him by certain segments. Yeah. They don't like the way he's officiated and things of that nature.
I get all that, but I also think a lot of those people didn't grow up in the era that we grew up in, where we had a lot of great centers and they were all officiated that kind of same way. It's just how it was. So I get it. I understand. I'm not saying their complaints aren't valid. If they don't like it, they don't like it. But I don't really.
To each other, I don't care. Yeah, I mean, just saying. There's some people who don't like his game, and
the only time officiating genuinely bothers me is when it's too much. For example, it completely ruined the North Carolina-Gonzaga championship game. That was just a free throw shooting contest. They whistled everything. It just did not stop, and the game took forever, and it slowed down the pace of two really good teams. And to me, I'd rather have it a little bit different, but that's the only time officiating truly bothers me.
Yeah, I don't normally pay too much attention to it. If it's something egregious, then okay, I'll let it be known. But the the hand-wringing over, like, every single game, I just find to be, like, almost borderline psychotic behavior. I mean, honestly, like, if you're going to do that for every single game, like, why would you even watch? Like, that would just drive me insane. Anyways, I've seen that, just criticism, I guess, of just his style and how he's officiated, but he's obviously a great player. He's one of the biggest stars in the sport, and not surprised to see him, in the National Player of the Year, mention conversation and award. So, good for Zach Edey. Let's see if they'll close it on out this weekend.
And the Coach of the Year is Kelvin Sampson. So Houston bowed out to Duke in the Elite Eight. But Kelvin Sampson named Coach of the Year, beat out Dan Hurley, who still has UConn rolling right now. And along with that comes this $20,000 incentive bonus for being the National Coach of the Year.
I'm glad. I'm sure that'll get him his next meal. I really admire Coach Sampson. I think he's done a great job. And I think, look, taking a team into a new conference and doing what they did and being a 1 seed when that conference is the toughest one, top to bottom, through the regular season, and winning it in year 1, that's Coach of the Year stuff right there.
Yeah, I mean, these are regular season awards, so hard to argue with regular season. Houston, clearly disappointment in the postseason. You'll always have the what if with Jamal Shead, and that's valid. I mean, if they have Jamal Shead healthy, there's a very good chance that they moved on, but they didn't, and that's what it was. But this is not a postseason award, so Kelvin Sampson very deserving here. And if you were to reset it, like all the awards are this way, but if you were to reset it, then you'd have somebody else probably taking it since Houston bowed out as early as they did. But as far as the regular season goes, he's quite deserving, and it was a heck of a run for them, and just disappointing they couldn't get more out of the roster that they had due to health. But that's the breaks, and that's just the way sports go.
So the coaching carousel continues to spin, and right now you have Indiana State head coach John Schertz, after falling to Seton Hall in the NIT Championship 79-77. He is out and is going to St. Louis to become the Billikens' next head coach.
I guess that's a step up there. But I always loved that mascot, the Billikens there. And he left the Sycamores, right?
Yep.
Yeah, Sycamores to Billikens. He's got unique coach. I'm surprised he didn't. I guess that they made the NCAA tournament, which was not their fault. That was more of a, them just being, who they are and where they are. But maybe he gets a bigger job, but he's a good coach, and I'm sure he'll do well for St. Louis.
Yeah, Indiana State was definitely a snub, but that's probably the coolest mascot transition you can make is Sycamores to Billikens. I mean, that is definitely not Panthers to Tigers, so that's just unique. And getting paid significantly more in the $2 million range per season, that'll do it. That'll put your mind at rest and make you want to go be a Billiken for sure. So, good for Josh Schertz on getting this little step up, it appears.
And with Eric Musselman out at Arkansas, they continue to look for their head coach. Now Jerome Tang has emerged as the leading candidate, as Chris Beard said he will stay at Ole Miss.
I'm sure Chris Beard got maybe a little bump out of that because it is Arkansas. And John Kurtz was on the show yesterday and told us that the president at Kansas State had kind of reopened that wound when he did an interview this week with the Mercury. And so – Tim Fitzgerald says that he thinks it's a nothing right now, but I don't know. And
not based on the Kansas State writer reaction that I'm seeing. They're talking through it. It's like therapy on Twitter right now. This is why he's not going to go. This is why this is silly. And then the follow up is like, but if it were to happen,
that's why. Look, this is, it would be a gigantic, colossal failure on Kansas State University's part. And not Gene Taylor, because Gene Taylor is an excellent athletic director who is the one who wanted Jerome Tang, and he's going to be the real victim in all this. But letting Jerome Tang, how you can get a cross relationship with Jerome Tang, to me, says a lot about you as a person and a leader. That you would do that and then, not really offer any clarity on the situation of Naquan Tomlin and how it all went down and why. And then especially, there's no clarity with the public, with the fans. Mm-hmm. There doesn't seem to be a lot of clarity with Jerome Tang either. And letting him walk and going, not because, Arkansas and Kansas State, honestly, I know Arkansas has the title back in the Nolan Richardson days, and that's a program that's in the SEC and blah, 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 blah. But as far as recent success, to me, it's not really that different of a job, maybe other than money. And Jerome Tang is a person who will stay someplace for a long time if you let him be Jerome Tang. So I absolutely think that that they messed up here. If Jerome Tang leaves and goes to Arkansas, that is a colossal failure on Kansas State's part.
Yeah, I mean, I follow several Kansas State writers, and this went from nothing burger to really talking it through out via Twitter of well, this doesn't make sense for him to leave, and this doesn't make sense for him to leave, and this doesn't make sense for him to leave. But man, I swear to God, if so-and-so allows him to walk, it's kind of one of those things where you feel like no, and then yet you realize no, there is a possibility. So I think Kansas State's in a weird spot right now as a fandom of just wondering what's actually going to happen here. And yeah, if they were to see him walk after just a couple of seasons, I think it would be something where there's going to be some accountability needed elsewhere, and that's going to cause quite a spark in the fandom and the media to want answers and to know what exactly is going on, that you couldn't hold on to Jerome Tang as great of a start as he got off to in Manhattan. Arkansas is a good job. I think that they're hungry to win, obviously. And, in this day and age with the conferences being what they are, anytime somebody's eyeing the SEC or the Big Ten, I mean, it's one of those reasons that you at least put down of there's that guaranteed payout stability that not everybody else can guarantee right now. So I do think this attraction. I don't think it's necessarily an attraction that automatically pulls you away. So there would need to be more to it than just money or stability, because I think he's got that at Kansas State for the most part. Mm-hmm. It's just not as strong of a conference, but in basketball it is. Mm-hmm. In basketball it's as strong, if not stronger. So yeah, if you were to bungle this, then that's going to be something that you're going to have to be accountable for if you're Kansas State leadership. So I'm very curious to continue to see over this weekend kind of how the messaging goes and sort of just what the talk is, because, man, that would be just a total bummer. I know Scott Drew would probably love it, though, not have to play Jerome Tang every year, not because he can't beat him or anything, but just because he doesn't like to play his former coaches, and he's now got them all surrounding him basically in the Big 12, so that'd be one less guy. Besides that, though, I think everybody wants to see Jerome Tang and what he can do for Kansas State remain in the Big 12. But, yeah, this is interesting that there is obviously some smoke here. That's valid, but is it enough to make it a real deal thing? I think it's I can't tell at this point, but there is some smoke there.
Yeah. And our final nugget comes from Pete Nakos. And, Paul, this is something yesterday we were talking about the Super League. We had Brandon Marcello on, and he mentioned that the SEC leaders were probably not going to let this happen, and the Big Ten as well, for that matter. But Pete Nakos spoke with an athletic director from the SEC, and he is saying that, yes, that will be dead on arrival. We are not interested in giving up all the rights.
Yeah, I mean, this I did the top 5 of the 5 things that will derail it, and, of course, this is one of them. But, yeah, as soon as I heard it, and we had Brandon Marcello yesterday was other than them being forced to because the other way is somehow a colossal failure for them, or the money isn't what they think, there's no way they're going to do this. Or there's more guaranteed money that's out there, and you can promise them this and the control and all these things. But the 2 things I thought that was, 1, the control, and 2, the fact that the playoffs are going to be 16 teams, and it's 8 conference champions and then 8 at-larges based on kind of the NFL playoff formula, and that's really not going to get it done for the SEC, I think, a lot of the time. So we'll see. I don't know, but I think that's what's going to slow this down more than anything is the SEC and the Big Ten in particular are going, well, no, we don't want to negotiate TV rights altogether. If we wanted to do that, we'd have done that before the rest of the whole thing collapsed.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything to slow down here. I don't think there's any speed being driven right now by this idea. It's just simply something that was thrown out there to, I think, gauge reaction and to kind of see where everybody's minds were. And when it dropped the other day, I kept saying, I need to read the whole thing. I need to read the whole thing, because we saw a headline, and then it basically was react, and it's not that simple, and that's not kind of how I operate. So I wanted to read more about it, And I was initially intrigued by it, and I remember we had somebody text in and say, this is a big old nothing burger. And I disagree at the time, and I disagree even more now. Not that it's not nothing, in that it's nothing in that it's not going to happen. We can agree there. But it's not a total nothing burger in that it's at least interesting, and I think it is notable that there are people that are clearly floating ideas like this and trying to come up with different ideas, and clearly there is no leadership at the top of the college sports landscape right now, and there are a bunch of people swirling who see opportunity. No? And I think that is notable. I think there's notable that there's private equity folks, and there's various league folks, there's ESPN, there's NFL people that are trying to get involved in this, and I think that's all much more than nothing. I think it's nothing as far as this particular idea goes. Yeah, it's not happening. It's DOA, as others have referred to it, or I guess as the AD referred to it there. I completely agree with that, but I do think it's something that there was, the folks involved trying to get their fingers in the pot, so to speak, or try to stir it a certain way, because everybody realizes there's no set future for this sport. Mm-hmm. There is barely any rules at this point. There's all this talk about a super league. So nobody knows what this thing looks like, and everybody's trying to figure out, or at least take control and help steer it in their vision of it. And I think all of that's very notable. But yes, this particular idea, we're not going to see this for a variety of different reasons. Part of it being there's just so many questions about it. I mean, there's some detail in that article, but there was a whole lot of detail that matters that was left out. Now, sure, they could have talked about that throughout the process as that idea was bandied about, but there was just too many holes, such as, the payout structure and the existing TV contracts. And if you're the SEC and you just added Texas and Oklahoma, why are you going to suddenly boot some teams out? What the hell are we going to do that for? If you're the Big Ten, you just added USC and Oregon and Washington, UCLA, you're going to pare down to what they want it to be, a 10-team conference? Mm-hmm. Why would you do that? Yeah. You've got nearly 20 teams. Yeah. I mean, so, yeah, there was just parts of it that made absolutely no sense. The TV part of it, the culling of teams part of it. For those two conferences in particular, when you've added the brands you have, you didn't add them unless, is that alternate reality where, sorry, Vandy, see ya, Indiana, see ya, or something along those lines, but that doesn't appear to be the case either. So, yeah, this is not surprising to see this. The SEC and the Big Ten and the TV networks are the ones that are ultimately going to make the decision on what we see moving forward, whether people like it or not. That's just the power brokers in play. And so if they're not on board, then there's not going to be anything to it. And it's pretty clear that this idea was thrown out to gauge reaction and to get a bit of response, and it did, and it's come back, and it's not something that we're going to see moving forward. Yeah, something like this ish may happen. It's interesting in that there's at least an idea being floated. Like I said, there's people who you don't realize are trying to get involved in this whole thing that are like, hey, the NFL, why is the NFL getting involved in it? So I think that part of it's interesting because, everybody's been saying for a long time, college sports has no leadership, right? At the very top. And so the more this is dragged out, the more the lawsuits have piled up, the more the uncertainty is built. I think there's vultures circling college sports right now, looking for their share and what they can take a bite of. And that is very interesting, and that is far more than nothing. But, yeah, that particular idea, nothing burger, not entirely, but pretty close. Yeah. All right, when we come back, Sam Khan broke down the conferences the way he would like to see them and made an 80-team Super League out of last year's results. It was really done well. We'll go through that next as he joins us, the Techspert. This is 365 Sports.
Rev up your excitement. Celebrate the spirit of adventure during the Jeep Celebration event. Join us at Allen Samuels in Waco as we roll out incredible deals on rugged and reliable Jeep vehicles you love. Seize the moment and drive home in the new Jeep of your dreams. With special financing options and exclusive offers, there has never been a better time to explore the world of Jeep. Hurry in, the savings won't last long. Visit AllenSamuelsDCJ.com and see them firsthand only at Allen Samuels in Waco. Let your adventure begin.
Come by, let's be friends.
Stepping into the boots of a U.S. Army officer can add confidence and leadership skills to your son or daughter's career path. See all the things they can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be part of the Waco community. We're a small family business here in Central Texas. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important. And unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. And that's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through this difficult time. So if you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. You can schedule online in minutes at idealmri.com or call 833-IDEAL-MRI.
Camille Johnson Realtors guide you seamlessly through the process of buying your dream home or selling your current one. Commercial, farm and ranch, or residential, Camille Johnson Realtors can smoothly and successfully lead you through any transaction. With a team of 28 experienced agents who are excited about serving you, Camille Johnson Realtors services the entire greater Waco area. If you're in the market to buy or sell, contact Camille Johnson Realtors, 104 Midway Center in Woodway, or find them online at www.camillejohnson.com. Camille Johnson Realtors, elegant, charming, warm. Welcome home.
Parenting is full of surprises.
You never know what to expect.
So after our son was born, I called my Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent to set up a life insurance policy in case something happened to me.
Sawyer is now 2.
And we'll soon have a sister. There's no one else I would trust with protecting my family.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
Baylor alumni are more than 160,000 strong. When we all join hands to support our university, we don't just move the needle, we move mountains. Working together, we create life-changing opportunities for students on the field, in the classroom, in the laboratory, and in life for generations to come. So get connected, get involved. Learn how at baylor.edu/alumni.
Let the journey to financial brilliance begin with Genco's limited time offers. Max your earnings with a Kasasa cash account and get paid monthly with a 4.25 APY. That's $425 annually. Then invest in a 13-month share certificate and earn 4.9 APY. That's $529. Earn cash and outshine the rest. At Genco, we offer you the sun and the moon. Kasasa based on average daily balance of $10,000. Certificate based on $10,000 investment. See GencoFCU.org for details. NCUA.
This is 365 Sports.
The 3 o'clock hour is sponsored by Waco Custom Marketplace. Meats, sweets, Texas treats, and a cut above the rest. 425 Lake Air Drive, Waco.
Welcome back, 365 Sports. Sam Kahn of The Athletic joins us now, and Sam wrote a fantastic article. I'll put the link up in the chat right now for people to see about what an 80-team Super League would have looked like had it happened this last season. He still has Michigan winning the whole thing, but Sam, before we get to the column that you wrote and how you broke it down, obviously there were a lot of obstacles to this ever happening. But this is the first actual proposal on something like this we've heard that has rules and, you know, the way things would break down. How do you think that this would eventually come about, or something like this would come about?
Obviously, there are, like you said, a lot of hurdles, namely three that I think of, which are the TV networks, the Big Ten, and the SEC, because I think any plan that engulfs the whole sport has to have those entities on board, for better or worse. I mean, whether you agree with it or not, that those are the players who hold the cards. If we say that we can get them on board, my gut feeling is that something smaller than this would be the end result. I don't think that it would be possible for them to do something of this scale, maybe half of this. I like this idea better than what we have now. I will tell you that I like this. I like the 80-team setup better than we have now. But I think that the intentions of this group, the 20-member group that dubbed this plan College Sports Tomorrow, I think their intentions are in the right place, because they talk about, you know, revenue sharing and contracts and, you know, objective playoff structure as opposed to a subjective one. And I think they're thinking about the right things. It's just, I think it's going to take years for us to get to anything like this.
Sam, is it just another sign that the sort of, I guess, feeling of being fed up, waiting for the actual leadership to kind of lead, that now you've got ESPN, you've got college sports tomorrow, and all that entails, people trying to come up with solutions? Is it just a sign that there's just sort of nobody at the steering wheel right now in your mind, and that there's kind of, I don't know if vultures is the right term, but there's definitely people circling trying to grab hold of that leadership?
Yeah, no doubt, because I think it's an acknowledgement that people don't like where we're heading. And I will say there have been many inflection points along that journey, but I think the biggest one that people have had to reckon with is the death of the Pac-12. Because for all the things that have happened in the last 25 years, none, I don't think, have resonated quite like that one. Like Oklahoma and Texas resonated in a big way. Obviously, the how close we got to doing the Pac-16 and all that. But the last real major shakeup, I guess, that I can think of, I guess, is, the death of the Big East and the death of the Southwest Conference. But the fact that one of the major conferences that existed and had a lot of success and had a lot of appeal and occupies an important part and a large part of the geographic landscape, I think the death of that, and knowing that, like you said, we're seeing people mobilize, and you wonder if the Big Ten and the SEC are just going to try to snatch up all the relevant brands and then try to make their own thing. I think most people outside those leagues will say we don't want that, and so that's why I think it's important when you look at this group that proposed this, that some of the people on board are the president, the chancellor at Syracuse, and the president of West Virginia. Those are people who would not be probably in that in-group with the Big Ten and SEC if the Big Ten and SEC do their own thing. And so I think it's an acknowledgement that, hey, we've got to do something, because if we don't, somebody else will.
Yeah, Sam, that's, one of the things I think is funny. Every time we ask someone, including Brett Yormark last week when we had him on, does Greg Sankey, does he have the best interest of all of college sports at heart, or is that just something he says? And most will say, yeah, I believe that he does. But everything it seems like he does, and Tony Petitti now to that end as well, doesn't seem like they do. So, even like they haven't commented on this yet, but if they commented and said it's an interesting idea and we'd like to see where it goes, that would floor me, even if they had no intention of ever enacting it.
Yeah, and the thing is that's part of the flaw in where we are right now, too, is that does Greg Sankey have the best, or Tony Petitti have the best interest of the sport in their minds and in their when they're thinking about that in their actions? And probably not. But is that really their job? I mean, that's the thing, is we're asking conference commissioners to assume agency over the entire sport when really their job should be to look out for their members. And now, I think conference commissioners have become like the de facto leaders because there really was no central power structure as the money grew. Like when we got from what I think was an amateur sport 30, 40 years ago to what is now essentially a professionalized sport, and the money just exploded, somebody had to fill that vacuum, and conference commissioners have kind of become those people. And obviously the ones that have been the most successful have been the ones with the football programs that have been most successful. So, I don't think anybody should look at Sankey or Petitti as having any kind of altruism in all this, nor should they do that with Yormark or anybody else. Everybody's going to look out for their members and their conferences, but that's the flaw kind of where we are, is like there's no real one person or one small group that's going to pull in sync together to make sure that everybody's taken care of.
Yeah, I was trying to think of the right term, and I guess power vacuum. There's a power vacuum right now in college sports for certain. And, yeah, I agree. Like, I mean, there's certain things that I think sometimes Sankey comes across the wrong way, but at the end of the day, I acknowledge, like, he's only worried about the SEC. That's all his job is to worry about, is the SEC. Now, Sam, with this article, you took the idea that college sports tomorrow put out there a couple of days back and applied it using last year's results. 80 teams, 8 divisions, the Super League, and how it would have looked last season. Can you just kind of take us through this exercise, sort of where you started and kind of what you came across along the way?
Yeah, this was an idea that came from one of my bosses, our managing editor, college football managing editor, Jill Thaw. She messaged me about probably an hour after the story that Stu Mandel and Andrew Marchand posted about the details of all this. And she had said, hey, would you be up for doing here's how this would have looked like last season's story. And once I kind of got the gist of it, I was like, yeah, hell yeah, I'll do this. I was like, 'cause I've kind of been thinking about how could we rearrange the sport to bring back some geographical sanity in the leagues. And so knowing that, okay, we have to work in the parameters of this, and it's 80 teams, I can do this. So I think I got that message probably about 5:30. I think by the time I finished, it was probably about 1:30. And so it was a long sprint because while I have thought about this for a long time, trying to work within the parameters of doing 7 divisions, split them off geographically, and then have one division that's specifically for the G5s and promotion and relegation, that was a really big challenge. Like, it was very easy for me to put all the Texas schools together. It was very easy to put all the Big Ten schools together and the SEC schools and all that stuff. But then when you have some of these other schools that have come into the power conferences, like your UCF or your BYU, it became hard to find a place to put them with a 10-team limit. And so that was the real challenge of it. I did my best to adhere to traditional conference structures, geography, history, rivalries, and preserve as much of that as possible. But obviously there were some awkward, I had South Carolina in the ACC, because you could only have 10 SEC schools, so 4 of them got to go. I had debated whether or not to put Penn State into the Big Ten or the Big East. Southwest, if I brought the old Southwest Conference back, obviously Rice is not in it. Does Oklahoma and Oklahoma State go with them, or do they go with the old Big 8 schools? So it was a lot of that, but it was an interesting exercise. And to me, I am one of these people who dreads a Super League because I just don't like where we're headed. But after putting this together, if this was the plan, I could kind of live with this. Like, if people use the geography and the history as a guiding force in constructing the divisions, then I could kind of live with this because I think it does bring back what we had missed about college sports under all this realignment.
All right, Sam. So let's get into. I'm going to start with. I mean, you kind of nailed these conferences, and I'm not going to go through all 80. We'd have you here until you couldn't be on the show anymore. But the one that the two that stuck out to me were the frequent flyer division, which had to be kind of the hardest one to make, given the fact that, it is like a little bit scattershot when you start putting these teams in groups of 10, which is another, a less major reason why this would be difficult to happen, but one that would bear looking out. But the Southwest Conference back together and adding the Oklahoma schools, to me, was very chef's kiss on this. I kept scrolling down. I was like, I know he's the textpert. That's the one that's going to be last. Was that the thing that when you start doing these, you're like, oh, man, if I could see these again, that would be great?
Oh, that was the first thing I did. When I saw I had this and I had the agency to put whoever I wanted to anywhere, I was like, I'm bringing back Southwest Conference, number 1, and I'm bringing back the Big East. So because those were, obviously the Southwest Conference has a lot of history and it was a major conference. And then the Big East, obviously not as deep and long a history, but I thought that was, especially toward the end of the BCS era before it fell apart, I thought it was a really fun league. And, a lot of times it was the de facto automatic qualifier conference and you got a team out of there, maybe was ranked 20th or something. But you had some fun times with, the Steve Slayton, Pat White, West Virginia teams. And I remember even, they're not in this group, but I remember South Florida even reaching number 2, Rutgers reaching in the top 5. Like, it was an interesting group. But yeah, bringing it back to Southwest Conference was like my number 1 priority. That's probably my biggest fever dream in college football is, can we get the old Southwest Conference schools back together. And I understand why it failed, and I understand why it dissolved. I understand what forces took it apart. But boy, if we could get back to a place where we are able to drive to almost every road venue in the conference and have the familiarity, the rivalry, the intensity that goes back into that, gosh, I think it'd be so much fun to have. And that's actually what I've heard from some Big 12 schools now that you have 4, former Southwest Conference members in the Big 12 now. And last year, I guess 5, if you include Texas. That was some of the charm for like a school like Houston that came into the league. It was like, wow, this is what we've been missing, is seeing schools that are close to us and familiar to us. And we can drive up to even not just football. Like I had the AD at Houston told me a couple of weeks ago, it was like the fact that our fans could go drive to the Baylor basketball game that morning and be back home at night was a huge plus. And that's kind of was my guiding light in trying to put these together.
Sam, it's almost kind of depressing to look at this because it just makes so much sense, and it is what we had, and now we don't have it, and now I don't know if we ever have it again, right? I mean, unless there is some type of a super league, but I mean, yeah, the de facto Southwest Conference, I mean, Arkansas being in there with the Oklahoma schools and all the Texas schools, like it just looks right. Looking at the Pac-10, which is no longer going to exist. I mean, that's the way that it always was. That's the way that it should be. And, save for, Utah's not in this because you had to stick at 10 teams. But, I mean, even the teams that would get chopped off and end up in that frequent flyer, I mean, I think all those teams would be thrilled to play each other because of the regionality and just the possible rivalries. I mean, there's going to not be a perfect fit for everybody, but man alive, it was kind of like almost bittersweet putting this together because it makes so much sense, but yet we know this is probably not anything they could put back in the box again.
Oh yeah, it was a lot of fun for one, but yeah, it was definitely bittersweet because I thought about it, and I had this, I think, conversation with some of the folks in the comments afterwards. I sometimes wonder, we talk about a 16-team playoff here. Obviously, we have the 12 team coming up. I sometimes wonder if we had installed a 16-team playoff in the 90s, which actually, believe it or not, was proposed. I think even as far back as the late 80s, the College Football Association was trotting out a plan in like 89 and shaking it around the conferences for a 16-team playoff. I wonder if we had installed that way back when, or even in the mid-2000s, could we have preempted all this realignment? Because initially what started the realignment was the TV eyeballs, but also the automatic qualification. And people wanted to be in the automatic qualifiers, the BCS 6 conferences. And that was one of the hang-ups, like, okay, we can make it to that conference. And I'm like, man, if we had just had a playoff like this, could we have just stopped all that then and then create all that? But, it's kind of water under the bridge at this point. I don't think there is any going back.
Sam, which conference do you think would be the maddest that they lost some of these teams?
That's a great question. I mean, certainly the SEC. I think it would be more because this SEC is 10 teams. It doesn't have Texas and Oklahoma, which are coming in, obviously. And you lose some schools that have been around for a while. Like you lose to South Carolina and Arkansas. They came in the early 90s. It's, we're going to more than 30 years now that they've been in the league. So those are the ones that I would think would be the hardest to pull apart because I feel like they've kind of been in this together for a long time. And those 10 members that are in the one that I put together, those schools have been in it for almost ever. And that would be really difficult. And the other one it's not about losing the conference, but being put into one is Notre Dame. Because we all know Notre Dame treasures independence. And that was kind of the interesting exercise for this too, was like, where do I put Notre Dame? Do I put them with the Big Ten, but I wanted to have, a traditional Big Ten? Do I put them with, some more Midwestern schools, which would have put them with a Big 8, but that seemed kind of awkward. So I stuck them with a Big East. And I think Notre Dame, eventually they may have to join the conference, but I think they're going to go down kicking and screaming on that.
Yeah, definitely. Now, as far as the relegation and promotions part of this, I can't say that I'm not intrigued by that. I just have major questions of how it would work, like budget-wise, right? Of just, recruiting-wise. How are you going to tell guys, like, hey, come here, and then we may or may not be in a league your whole career, like that part of it, I think obviously would need some more details. But Bill Connolly, has been on this relegation train for a long time. I know there's others as well, but where do you kind of sit on that? Obviously, you've included it, so I think you have interest in it. But how do you think that could possibly work? And I guess just kind of take us into the teams that would make this interesting potentially.
Yeah, I don't like promotion and relegation being only for that one division. That, to me, I think that's short-sighted. I like the Bill Connolly plan, which he's been trotting out since about 2015, which is basically align all the power conferences with a regionally adjacent Group of Five conference and do it that way. I love that. For instance, maybe you would have the Big 12 and the American, so to speak, and that you could have the two American schools go up and two Big 12 schools go down. Same thing with the SEC and the Sun Belt, or the Pac-12 and the Mountain West. And I think I like that idea. But the thing is we all know the schools in the power conferences are never going to go for that. They're never going to go for a system where they could actually get demoted and relegated. As someone who watches Premier League soccer, I love the concept. And when I first discovered it, and I first started watching Premier League soccer 15 years ago, I was like, after a few years, I was like, why don't we do this in the States? This is a fantastic system, because it really creates intrigue at the bottom, because then you're not playing out a 4-8 season. Like, it means something at the end, because you're trying to survive so you can stay up, and it creates so much drama and intrigue. But you're right, the biggest hurdle is the finances, because if you get relegated, then that is a massive financial hit and reputational hit for your school. So in order to make something like that work in college football, I think you have to have some type of either insurance or pool of money for the schools that would suffer that, to kind of help them endure that. Because and we're talking, by putting the Group of Five schools in that group, you're talking the schools that can least afford a financial hit, as opposed to the other 70 who probably have a better shot at being able to take that kind of hit for a year.
Sam Kahn of The Athletic. Sam, I know you got to go. You've got another interview to do. Thanks a lot. The column was great and very interesting, and you've made me nostalgic, and I don't know if I love you or hate you for that. So
thanks so much, guys. Appreciate y'all. Talk to y'all soon.
All right, Sam Kahn, the Techspert, here with us on 365 Sports. Next up, Grayson Gruder, SicEm365.com. Then after that, we're going to talk Arizona State with Chris Cartman, and then we will have Ryan Andrade, who was on with us last Friday, talking Final Four. So,
yeah, that's cool. I mean, it's a very interesting article. It's again, it's kind of bittersweet, because you see how the conferences are set up, and they do make much more sense than the ones that we have currently. And I think there'd be one that'd be a bit messy, because it's the frequent flyer. So you do have still a Utah with a UCF. You have, Nebraska probably in a group of schools that they would prefer not to be in compared to where they are now. There's little tiffs like that you would have. But as an idea, I think it's brilliant. And even that flyover division or frequent flyer division would be really interesting, because you'd still have some geography very much in play there. So, yeah, it's fun to look at. I mean, there's obviously hurdles that would prevent this from happening. For example, I don't think South Carolina is just going to say, all right, we'll leave the SEC and go to the ACC, or the Texas and Oklahoma will be like, yeah, we'll leave the SEC. We just got here. We'll go to this new Southwest Conference reimagined. But, man, it sure looks pretty. It looks good, and it looks like something that would be a lot of fun, and it looks like a lot of what we had in yesteryear. But yeah, it's right now kind of wishful thinking, but depending on, how this is all set up in the future, I mean, maybe this is more of a possibility than we think, but it is certainly fun food for thought and cool to look at and imagine and think about what could possibly be the way forward. But yeah, it's a fun article, and I like the setup for most of these, if not all of these conferences. There's just little plugs, little holes that you have to plug, where there's pieces that don't fit exactly. Like UCF, I mentioned, would be kind of still out on its own island compared to everybody else in that frequent flyer division. But I think he did a bang-up job, and it's a fun little article there.
All right, we're going to go to a break right now. We're going to have Chris Cartman now, and then I'm going to see if Grayson can flip, we can just flip spots. So Chris Cartman now, he's got to go in a second. So we'll take a break. We'll come right back with Chris Cartman, and then we'll go to Grayson.
With so many companies and policies out there, it gets so confusing shopping for insurance, and I never know if I'm getting the policy that's right for me. Luckily, I met the team at the Niche Group Insurance Agency. With the Niche Group, you can go to one company and get access to coverage options from many insurance carriers, and you get to speak to a real person about your specific coverage needs. With the Niche Group, I know I'm getting the right coverage at the right price. If you need insurance, talk to the experts at the Niche Group at 1-800-258-8302.
Don's Humidor, your home with a 48-foot walk-in humidor with the elite cigar brands from around the world, including the #1 cigar of the year, Aging Room Cuatro Nicaragua. Plus, they have the great brands like Macanudo and Artur Fuente, Rocky Patel, Aston, and so much more. CBD, great for sore muscles, aches and pains, sleep, Vita Dreams, and anxiety, mild depression, general health and wellness. Their staff very knowledgeable on the subject. If anyone is curious about CBD, ask Carol and Ashley. Don's Humidor in the Townwest Shopping Center off Valley Mills in Waco.
Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, a wrist injury, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trust. Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
Waco Custom Marketplace is your hometown grocery store with a full-service butcher shop and bakery. Hi, this is David Smoak. The butcher shop can take your customized orders for seafood, pork, and poultry and custom cut your favorite steaks from bacon-wrapped fillets, sirloin steaks, bone-in ribeyes, boneless ribeyes, and even prime rib. Cut specifically the way you want, the thickness that you want. They're all delicious. They have Norwegian salmon, mahi-mahi, catfish fillets, sliced ham or turkey, variety of cheese, and several options of sausage links, and even regular jalapeno or cheese snack sticks, fresh chicken breast or whole chickens, sliced bacon, pork chops, and ground beef, marinated beef or chicken fajitas, and always large briskets and tri-tip available, plus fresh vegetables. So the great product, customer service, and tradition continues at Waco Custom Marketplace, a full-service butcher shop and bakery, open Monday through Saturday. The Bauer family, Waco Custom Marketplace, 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco, or WacoCustomMarketplace.com.
This is 365 Sports. Text us at 254-339-1122. The text line is sponsored by Riverbend Liquor and Wine, with the most extensive variety of craft beer in Waco. A hidden gem on Lakeshore Drive and 19th Street.
Welcome back. Had to flip our guests. Sun Devil Sources. SunDevilSource.com's Chris Cartman is now, and then Grayson Gruder in the next segment, and then Ryan Andrade will talk Final Four with us after this. And Chris, Arizona State this spring, last year obviously was very difficult, and they had the bowl ban, and it felt like right at the beginning it kind of cast a pall over the whole season. But Big 12, Jaden Rashada, some depth behind him at quarterback. Is there booming optimism with Kenny Dillingham and the guys right now?
Oh, absolutely. I feel like the team is a lot deeper, bigger, stronger, especially up front on both sides of the ball. They've added 4 Division I offensive linemen, 5 defensive linemen. You see more physical, competitive practices. I think their O-line is legitimately 9 or 10 deep now, which in the spring is kind of a rare thing historically at ASU. Brought in Sam Levitt from Michigan State. He's talented. He's a little bigger than I thought, a little more athletic than I thought. He's got a good arm. Got to learn the system and sort of embrace a lot of the mental maturity, student of the game aspects, but Rashada is out for the spring with a hand injury. He said that he tore a tendon in his thumb while he was moving apartments. So he's not been able to practice, but he's been out there every day taking mental reps and everything. And I do think that there's going to be a quarterback competition that unfolds between those two guys.
Chris, what's kind of the message of spring for Kenny Dillingham? What's sort of the theme, I guess, if you will, as they try to build off what was obviously a very difficult year last season?
Well, they want to raise the minimum standards and the expectations internally. Last year it was about showing up on time and making sure that you did everything that you were just bare bones supposed to do. And now that's not good enough. That culture was set in the first year. They weren't able to translate that into success on the football field. So now you got to do extra. You got to be, stay after practice, work with your teammates on things, extra time in the film room, watching stuff on your iPad, getting in the weight room, doing a little bit more, skill development aspects. And the guys have really seemed to embrace that. There's been a lot of guys after practices staying out for 10, 15 minutes, doing some extra walkthroughs and install work on their own. And a lot of these players that have come in are veterans. A lot of them started or played a lot elsewhere. And so I feel like just the overall expectations internally have risen a lot this year.
Chris, first of all, Jaden Rashada's got an NIL deal. They can't get a movers to help him move apartments so this doesn't happen?
That's what I said, right? I mean, why are you lifting heavy boxes trying to do a bunch of stuff yourself? He's got a deal with a local car dealership. He's got a nice truck. He's got some other things going on. You can't get hurt moving boxes is what I would say.
No, I get it when you're 18, 19 years old. You move yourself. I understand. We've all done it many times, but also when you have the money, you hire movers because that's why they exist, so you don't throw your back out or tear a ligament in your all-important thumb. What would you – I mean, like, obviously, the only 2 wins last year, it's going to be tough to say what's the biggest problem. But what do you think is the biggest problem they'd have to solve before spring is over?
Well, before spring is over, I don't know that they're going to resolve it necessarily, but the quarterback situation is the most pressing and the thing that, in my opinion, is given the importance of the position, right, and the inexperience of the options behind Trenton Bourget, who doesn't have a high ceiling. I feel like better quarterback play or more reliable quarterback play is that's the big story here with ASU football. Now, there's other areas where I think that they can maybe upgrade a little bit more. The spring transfer portal, the tight end position, they've got some guys that are reasonably talented, but the depth is not really good there. Bram Walden started sometimes at left tackle last year. He hasn't been cleared because of injury. So they got to get their left tackle situation, I think, shored up a little bit more. Defensively, they look to be in good shape. For a team that lost a bunch of starters, the Sean Mallory, BJ Green, they lost Trey Brown, one of their best linebackers. They lost Jordan Clark goes to Notre Dame, and they lost two of their top 3 corners, Ro Torrance, D Ford. For a team that lost that many guys on defense, they have, in my opinion, either replaced them equivalently or even upgraded in a lot of respects. Now, maybe not quite with BJ Green, but I feel like from the guys that they got, the bodies that they added up front, they have more depth, more size, more versatility that will perhaps be able to overcome that. So defensively, really great shape. Offensively, it's key positions: quarterback, left tackle, and then lesser position tight end.
Chris, we know that it all starts at the top, and having an aligned leadership is always important for an athletic department. Arizona State's had their share of issues. Ray Anderson, obviously, back late last year, resigning, and there's this move now to the Big 12 after the Pac folded or collapsed in on itself. What's just sort of the feeling as far as the new era, I guess, that Arizona State's entering, new leadership, and just sort of where the school sits at the moment?
Well, fans are frustrated because it's taken a long time and there's no really clear sense of movement. Michael Crow, the athletic director, the president of ASU, has he's had some public comments about trying to reform a lot of the models, bring athletics in some financial ways more intermingled with the school budget that he thinks will help resolve some of their financial challenges and make things a little bit easier. Now, there's a lot of buzz around the ASU athletic department that one of two people could be promoted to the athletic director who already work at ASU. One of them is Jim Runn, who is the interim AD. He's an on-campus business and finance person, but this is his second stint as an interim AD. And then the possibility of a guy named Graham Rossini, who he's in marketing, does a lot of business deals, stadium rights, and some other sort of big corporate type stuff. A younger guy, he's an ASU graduate, was an ASU athlete. So some of those elements could perceivably make him appealing, even though he hasn't ever worked at other athletic departments at a really high level, never been a number 1, 2, or 3 person in a department, and not been a manager of a lot of people. So there's some questions, but there's a lot of buzz around the possibility of promoting, especially as some of the legitimately good candidates have gone to other schools. Like Sean went from Washington State to Washington. A lot of people thought he would have been a great candidate for ASU. So I don't know what's going to happen. There's some conflicting information. People that talk to Michael Crow that I've spoken with have said that they're very much still in this phase where they're looking at a variety of options and considering an external hire or promotion. And I think we're going to know probably in May. Before that, from a domino standpoint, I think we're going to find out at least the first phase of this NCAA case with the infractions, a negotiated resolution seems to be looming relatively imminent. It's hard to say exactly how quickly the NCAA moves so slow, but there's indicators from people I've talked to that this thing could happen within weeks, if not sooner. And it's a bifurcated process, so this is only one phase of the entire process. There's some additional coaches, a coach or more than one coach who opted out of this negotiated resolution, and they'll have their own case. So the very final findings from the NCAA is still months off, but that will be more related to a couple of individuals rather than the athletic department as a whole. And I think we'll have some reporting that it's starting to come together about whatever specific punishments may fall on the school and on some of the coaches who participated.
Chris, thanks a lot. I know you got another meeting you got to get to. Thank you so much. Enjoy the Final Four weekend there in Phoenix as well. Should be awesome to go see all that. Chris, thanks for being on. That's Chris Cartman, SunDevilSource.com. So I hope that Arizona, like, again, we talked about it the other day, sleeping giant, all those terms thrown around. They have a lot of potential that they're not reaching, and hopefully the leadership can see that, especially here in this new league where, again, this is as blank a slate as you're ever going to get in college sports when starting a league. And they have just as good of opportunity as anybody to build up a program and win the league.
Yeah, what do you mean by starting, just starting anew?
Yeah, I mean, look, who's a powerhouse that you're coming into? Like, everybody's kind of the same. Like, they're like, it's the most egalitarian league that there is. Like, there's,
Yeah, I mean, there's opportunity there. I mean, we'll see. I've been hearing Arizona State's a sleeping giant for a really long time. So, waking me up when that actually happens. But I do think there's tons of potential. That's why there was interest from the Big 12. And certainly it's exciting to see these 4 schools that'll be rolling in and see how they can maximize their new landing spots and maybe create a new path for themselves, to your point there. But, yeah, I mean, it's wide open. I don't love that Jaden Rashada's not practicing because of what sounds like a really dumb injury, honestly. Yeah. But, hey, things happen. I mean, look, he's not perfect. I know plenty of people have twisted an ankle trying to carry a couch or whatever, but yeah, you would think that you could sponsor a furniture moving company or something to not have him worry about that and just what a bummer of a reason to not be involved in spring and what feels like it's a pretty important spring for your football team. So, yeah, we didn't see a ton of him last year. A guy who, quite frankly, is just all NIL hype at this point. And, you know, maybe he can come into the Big 12 and set the league on fire and be the next big thing. But as of right now, he's a bigger name because of what happened before he ever played college football than anything he's done since he started playing college football. Would that be fair to say?
Yeah.
So, you know, it's about time for, I think, you know, him to turn into that player. If you're Kenny Dillingham, you're hoping that it's about time for him to turn into that player that's going to, you know, help take you to a great spot as a football program. But an interesting team, certainly not the first on the list and probably fourth on the list in terms of interest, I think, for just Big 12 fans rolling in, because Arizona, obviously, even with the coaching change, has a terrific quarterback and a great wide receiver and a lot of other really good players, and they don't feel like they're going to miss too much of a beat with Brent Brennan. We'll see on that, but they have some upward momentum after, you know, beating Oklahoma in the bowl game last year, coaching change aside. Then Colorado, obviously, with Deion. I mean, there's as many people watching him to fail as there are people watching most other programs in general. So they've got a massive audience that's wanting to see them sink or swim, and I think that's going to obviously remain the case heading into just his second year there in Boulder. And then Utah's, you know, obviously the team at the top when you think of who can jump right in and maybe win the league right out in year number one with all they have returning and just the stability that they have at the top and the proven track record that they have. So Arizona State's like 4-4. I think when you're talking about excitement and proven ability and all of those types of things. So very interesting offseason ahead for them. I do think Kenny Dillingham's a good coach, but he's got an uphill battle. And then again, like you said, it's kind of entering a blank slate this upcoming season. So really it sounds like the biggest thing for Arizona State would be to get their management situation, their leadership situation sorted out. But as you could tell from Chris's comments there, that is still, you know, a bit of a mess. And that's not normally what you see at athletic departments that are winning the way fans want to see them win. So there's a lot to sort out there as they make this transition, and hopefully they can clean that up, you know, sooner rather than later. But, you know, a team that we'll definitely be talking more about and, you know, figure out where they are in kind of the pecking order when the time comes. Excited to see them in this league.
Absolutely. All right, let's take a break right here. When we come back, Grayson Gruder for SicEm365.com. We'll talk a little bit of spring football with him. This is 365 Sports.
Cars priced right, day and night. Average your car in Texas. Trucks built for you, red, white, and blue. Average your car in Texas. Cars that zoom with lots of room. Average your car in Texas. Count on us, a dealer to trust. Average your car in Waco, Texas.
Established in 2007 and independently owned, Alliance Bank Central Texas is committed to helping families and businesses meet their financial goals. From their tellers to their board of directors, they know the importance of superior service and competitive products. Customers have confidence knowing that their financial needs are in good hands. It's your bank, Alliance Bank Central Texas, with 2 Waco locations, 4721 Bosque Boulevard and 191 Archway Drive on Highway 84, and at AllianceBankTexas.com. Member FDIC and equal housing lender.
Developed by Startup Waco, a nonprofit organization, GXG is a program designed to support the entrepreneurial development of Baylor University student athletes through NIL activations. The program helps student athletes maximize their platforms and offers a comprehensive support system for them to create and grow new businesses that not only benefit themselves, but also uplift the local economy. Fans who wish to support student athletes can donate to GXG via the GXG NIL Fund, BaylorBears.com/GXG. Contributions to support NIL activations through GXG can be made at BaylorBears.com/GXG. For more information, follow at GXG_GreenXGold on social media and visit the official website www.gxg.startupwaco.com. GXG, empowering student athlete entrepreneurship and uplifting the local economy through NIL activations.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine now has 2 locations to serve you. The original on Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street and the brand new spot in downtown Waco at 600 Franklin Avenue. If you're looking for the best in craft beers or local Texas bourbons, then the original is the place to be. And for the latest trends and online phenomenons, head downtown to the Franklin location. Either way, you're going to get the same great variety, customer service, and speedy experience. Check out both locations on their Facebook and Instagram pages. Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street, and now downtown on Franklin Avenue.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
The 4 o'clock hour is sponsored by Boozer's Jewelers, the wedding ring store, specializing in custom jewelry and repair, all in-house.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
Welcome back, 365 Sports. Paul Catalina, Craig Smoak. Smokey's out again today. Grayson Gruder, Sikkim365.com, recruiting analyst with us now. And Grayson, so far we're a little ways into spring football. The first scrimmage is tomorrow. What are you hearing? What is the kind of buzz around the camp right now, and what are the things that maybe might concern you injury-wise or things that have popped up?
Right. So, I mean, they technically had a scrimmage this past weekend. So that was kind of their first one, but I think this one will be a little bit more in depth. I think it's going to be a little bit longer, a little bit bigger, a little bit more of an event, for them to really go out there and kind of see how everyone's looking, see how the parts fit, and just kind of see, if they've made improvements over the past week. So, yeah, that's kind of a big thing that, I think they're trying to figure out. Obviously, you look at the offensive line and defensive lines, those are 2 areas of concern. I think for people who watch Baylor, people who cover Baylor, I also think it's a concern for the staff as well. I mean, those were positions that they looked at addressing in the transfer portal. They did it to a certain extent, but it seems like they're probably going to have to add to those positions, or you would think that they would add to those positions at some point, post-spring. So that's something that's definitely a big thing. Ohio transfer offensive lineman Kurt Daniker has been out for a while now. We haven't seen him since the first practice availability. So he's been out for some time now. So I think Dave Aranda's probably going to give more of an update on that, but it's obviously a concern when a guy who you brought in to be a starting guard for your team and really be a true leader and anchor for the offensive line missing extensive time. That's not great. It's better now than in the fall, but still not awesome to be missing him up to this point. So that's kind of the biggest thing for me. I think in general, though, these scrimmages are definitely about kind of finding the guys on your team who are really going to turn into guys who you feel like can not just start for you, but play major snaps for you. And I think that's what Baylor's trying to figure out throughout spring ball as guys develop, get better, as young guys continue to try to turn the corner, and as older guys, really try to re-solidify and redefine themselves after what I would say was a pretty tough year last season.
Grayson, we heard from Kevin Curtis and talking the cornerbacks room the other day. They come back pretty much in full. I know there's a couple of injuries right now that are keeping guys like Chateau Reed out, as well as Isaiah Dunsford. But other than that, I mean, they are pretty much full across the board. What are your thoughts on Caden Jenkins and company? Obviously, he's the headliner. They've got some expectations over on that side. Do you think they can meet him, and do you think that's going to be a strength like many people expect it to be?
I mean, that definitely should be a strength, and I think if you look at the early depth chart, that definitely should be a strength. I mean, Caden Jenkins getting a guy like that back, an all Big 12 caliber cornerback, returning, that's huge. But then you also have veterans, Tevin Williams and Chateau Reed. They've played a lot of snaps, and those are guys that you can definitely rely on. I think we need to see steps for both of them in the right direction, more steps. But I think in general, their experience, their knowledge, their athleticism, their savviness, I think all of that could come together for this team, and at least it gives them, veteran depth at the position. And then you look a little further, two young guys that I really like, and Reggie Bush and LeVar Thornton are kind of right there as well. And so, you got 5, 6 guys that you feel really good about. We'll see if Isaiah Dunson, what he looks like when he returns after suffering that season-ending injury just 3 games into the year. But I think in general, this is probably the deepest position, and probably the position that I would think Baylor feels the best at this point. There's a couple other positions you can make some arguments about, but specifically on the defensive side, there's no question that cornerback is the headliner.
Grayson, visitors, anybody intriguing popping into some of these practices?
Yeah, I mean, there's been quite a few guys that are, taking trips to practices kind of throughout, this spring. I would say, earlier this week, Palestine running back John Denman took a visit to Baylor. He got offered a little bit later in March, and he's a guy who is very intriguing. He ran a 10,600 meter. He's about 5'11", 206 pounds. So, I mean, you put that all together, you got a really explosive playmaker. He had really good film this year as well, even though he had limited amounts of carries. But I think it kind of been a foregone conclusion that, Baylor had Caden Knighton, the 4-star running back out of Oklahoma, and then they were going to take one more. And they already have 2 4-star guys visiting for official visits in Ricky Stewart and Michael Turner. So it was kind of like, okay, they're probably going to get one of those guys. But I think John Denman put his name in that group. And so now Baylor gives themselves another option moving forward. Another guy who visited was Cameron Morgan, the edge prospect out of South Oak Cliff. And he's a guy who's a top 100 prospect, would be one of the best prospects Baylor would have ever landed in its school's history. I mean, a really, really good player, a guy who has been to Baylor quite a few times, definitely has interest. And he actually set up his official visit as well. So you put that all together, and for Baylor to have a shot at getting a really high 4-star type prospect at edge, which is a position they definitely need to address, I mean, that would be huge. There are more and more guys, and tons of guys are visiting. You got the commit to a visit as well. So yeah, I think overall Baylor's doing a really nice job as we get closer and closer to the spring football game, which will be a nice visitor list. And then, of course, the official visits coming up at the end of April and then in June.
I don't mean to correct on there, but my East Texas has to. It's Palestine, Grayson, just for future reference, where Adrian Peterson's from. Palestine's who's currently in the Middle East, but just for future reference, Palestine, that's how we do things in East Texas. And that's the home of good old AD. But
and Bill Bradley.
And Bill Bradley also from Palestine, Texas. But Dave Aranda speaking tomorrow. If you could ask him a question, I don't know if you'll be out there or not, but if you could ask him a question, what would you, I guess, have top of mind to ask Dave Aranda?
I mean, the first question is definitely going to be about Kurt Banneker. I mean, you got to figure out kind of what's going on there. Is he going to be healthy? But aside from that obviously the injury question is always a good one to ask. I think it's definitely about him. And now that we're kind of into spring ball a little bit, just asking him kind of what that transition has been like to really focusing on the defense. I know we've had time to ask him these questions, but I think as time progresses, I would think the answer changes some, and just kind of, how getting back to, more of his roots, how has that, appealed to him? How's that worked out for him? How's he felt about it, even though he's a head coach, just kind of taking that step to being the defense coordinator, the linebacker coach, while also being the head coach. Just kind of how that, just how he's adapted to all of that, I think is really intriguing.
Grayson Gruder for Sikkim365.com recruiting analyst. Grayson, will you be at the scrimmage tomorrow, or are you going to wait till the spring game?
I will not be there tomorrow. I will be there this week, though, of course, on Tuesday. So
okay.
Not there tomorrow, but on Tuesday, yes.
All right. Well, Grayson, we'll talk to you again next week. We'll see you on Tuesday when you're here doing the Bearcast with Craig. That is Grayson Gruder for Sikkim365.com. Please subscribe and go to the site. So, yeah, it's weird about spring football. I never know what to make of any of it.
All right, yeah.
I remember leaving the spring game last year and people going, "Oh, what do you think?" And I was like, I think I just saw them practice. Like, that's all I could say.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely things you can take away. I mean, you notice who's practicing and who's not. Injuries are something to always pay attention to. If there's a guy over on the sidelines with a big-ass leg cast on, then that's notable. If he's somebody who's expecting to play, then you got to figure out, okay, what kind of injury is this and that. So obviously with Kurt Daneker, I don't know anything about the injury in particular, and I'm not using him as the example of the leg cast, but that is something that is of note, and you want to figure out, is that something that's going to affect next season, or is that just you're missing spring type of a thing? If you're missing spring, it's not that big of a deal. I just think they're in a weird spot as a program. Like, when you're winning a lot, spring football is way cooler. When you're not, spring football is sort of more of the middle. Just depends on how interested you are in those types of things, because it doesn't change your results, and that's what people want to see, right? So if they're down in the dumps and they're disappointed and they feel like it's not going the right direction, there's not really anything you're going to see or hear in spring that's going to make you feel otherwise. But when you're winning and you have a spring and things are seemingly going well, it seems like a bigger deal, because you just want more and more and more of that good fix, that good thing, that good ride that you're on. And so with them having 2 losing seasons back-to-back, I think that there's some of that excitement for spring that's missing, because there's just a bunch of change again, so you're still wrapping your head around, like, who all's even here and who's coaching what and those types of things. And then in the back of your mind, you're also thinking of, like, okay, is this actually leading somewhere, or is this just another spring and leading into another losing season? And so it's just harder to kind of rally the troops for something like that. And I think in general with college sports, I think so much of the conversations now is about the off-the-field stuff. Like, there's not as much of a focus on spring football. I think here, particular because of the losing, if they were winning, spring ball was always a big deal. You're like, give me more and more and more, and hear about the new wide receivers and hear about the new this and that. And now in the transfer portal era, it's like, are these guys even going to be on my team after spring? Is Dave Aranda going to be here a year from now? Like, it's just a different ball game. But yeah, a lot of attention's also on the portal or just the various other conversations ongoing. So I think whereas spring football would normally be like in the spotlight right now, and that would be what most people are talking about, instead they're talking about realignment, or they're talking about some Florida State issue, or which I guess is plays into realignment as well, obviously. But, those types of things are what are taking most of the headlines. The new proposed college football tomorrow group idea is getting all of the headlines, and that's fine. I just think that that's something that's taken away from spring ball a little bit. Not for better, not for worse. It's just a different kind of dialogue going on this time of year than there usually would be. So I've had fun going out there. Nothing's just blown me away, but I'm also not, a guy out there expecting to be blown away by seeing practices, but they seem to be in good spirits. There's a good culture going on. Cool to see some of the new faces, and just, hoping that they can stay healthy and give themselves the best shot to win next season, and give Dave Aranda, most importantly, the best shot to win next season. Because the last thing I want to see is like somebody major getting hurt that, that dings their chances to have the type of team that they can potentially have. And it's been a rough couple years, so there's a lot of work being done over there and a lot of work still to do. But there's some reasons for optimism, although we might not get those out of the spring game when all is said and done.
Yeah, you're right. But when they're, I remember going to the spring, like the spring game after the national championship in '99 at Florida State was like the coolest thing in the world.
Right.
Like, everybody was fired up, and then like. You say the coolest thing in the world. Once they actually started the game, it was like, wow.
Yeah, spring games are never that big of a deal.
Yeah, that's why I'd like to see.
It's just nice having football around, though. That's the thing, is like, compare it to not having anything whatsoever other than portal talk. And I know people make money off of the portal side of things, and there's all these different facets that are obviously have their fan bases that are very engineered and geared towards it. But I just think having pure football out there is something that's a nice tide you over until August, when we finally get it, the real deal. It's just a nice little appetizer to keep you full until that comes. But I think now, like, the main course is realignment and transfer portal and all those things that are happening before the season even starts, that are like I said, taking over a lot of the otherwise spring attention that it would receive. But yeah, in the grand scheme of things, it's not that big of a deal for your average fan, or even your diehard fan in some cases. The games aren't super entertaining. It's more about just seeing names and faces and getting your first look on an Arch Manning, or getting your first look at the new defensive coordinator and those types of deals. So I'm looking forward to a lot of that still. But yeah, it's not quite what it was when when spring games and spring practices were felt like they were a much bigger part of the pie than they are now.
Absolutely. When we come back, Ryan Andrade from RotoWire joins us, and we'll talk Final Four with him. So had a great segment with him last week, and we'll break down everything. I asked Evan Miyakawa, he's so big time now. His site is now his main thing. He's at the Final Four. He couldn't do it. He's just bouncing around, moving and shaking. So
big time in us already, huh?
That's right. Yeah. I mean, it happened. I talked to him today about another thing, and he was like, I'm just the whole, his world's kind of spinning right now.
Don't worry, Pete, I'll get back to you.
Yeah.
It's Paul, Evan. It's Paul.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. That's right, Paul. Yeah.
Yeah. No problem, Dennis.
Yeah. Pat you on the head and move along. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. When we come back, Ryan Andrade is with us. This is 365 Sports.
Samantha Duvall, TexasBeefHouse.com with me, David Smoak. And tell you what, you guys keep rolling along. You do have yet another date, correct, for an online and live auction?
Yes, our next online and live auction will be Thursday, April 25th.
We've discussed how this has been unique and how people have reacted to it. Has that momentum continued as you've done more?
Yes, it's kind of half and half. We'll have a good amount of people there that are from the area, and then we have probably 40% that we ship out, and everybody that I've delivered locally to has talked about how much fun they had, and they want to know when the next one's going to be. We've gotten great feedback from the people that we've shipped to. They're all just so excited about this event, and they can't wait for the next one to happen.
Premium grade East Texas beef. Customers don't have to go out and buy their beef. TexasBeefHouse.com. From their family and their ranch to your plate. TexasBeefHouse.com.
Automatic Chef Canteen is a full-service micro-market vending and office coffee provider with state-of-the-art vending equipment, a wide variety of products, and offering custom-fitted micro-market vending office coffee solutions for your employee break room. You want a full break room solution and a workplace oasis? Well, Automatic Chef Canteen, locally owned and operated for over 50 years in Central Texas, also includes in-house mechanics on call 24/7 for fast, reliable service and maintenance. Automatic Chef Canteen, 6900 Imperial Drive in Waco, or online at automaticchefcanteen.com.
Our good friend Brad Boozer, Boozer's Jewelers here at 365 Sports. Now, Brad, people who watch and listen to our show know I'm a double-time customer for you, engagement ring and wedding band, and you guys do that great, but that's not all you do at Boozer's Jewelers.
Absolutely, and I always like to say, it's a new year. It's a great way to start the year out. Go through your old jewelry. Go through your wife's jewelry box. Go through anything you're maybe not wearing, something that's broken, something that you're not using. We do a massive amount of custom work. We can take your old jewelry, old diamonds, old watches, and we can convert it into something special for you and make a one-of-a-kind piece of jewelry. And if that's not something you're interested in, a great thing is we can turn that into cash. So we buy gold, we buy diamonds, we'll buy Rolex watches, any kind of heirloom jewelry, anything that's maybe passed down to you.
Boozer's Jewelers, where do they find you, Brad?
We're at 1025 North Valley Mills Drive, right on the corner of Lake Air Drive and Valley Mills with the big clock on the corner.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com. Enjoying the show? Hit the like button and subscribe.
Welcome back. Paul Catalina, Craig Smoak, Garrett Ross, Embry Winter, and Jack McKenzie in the studio. A little bit of housekeeping once we're done with Ryan about Monday. We were unsure about Monday and how this is all going to work anyway. And as we sit here downtown and look out the windows, it's going to be nuts down here. So we don't really know what our plan is for Monday yet. So I'm telling you that all right now. We'll talk to you after Ryan Andrade is done. And Ryan, the Elite Eight shook out almost exactly as it should have. I don't think anybody had NC State in the Final Four, on their bingo card, but it's here. We get to see some old school center, big-time mashers. Can DJ Burns give Zach Edey more problems than he's had so far?
I guess that's sort of the million-dollar question, right? I mean, it'll be interesting to see how that matchup goes. I think for me, when I'm looking at this matchup, I'm not as much worried for NC State's sake on the defensive end, guarding Zach Edey. I think they have a lot of guys down low, not just Burns, Diarra, and Middlebrooks that they can throw at him to give him, some problems. For me, it's more of on the offensive end, because if you've watched NC State over the last, couple of weeks while been making this run, they kind of they throw it down into DJ Burns and they're just like, do something for us. Mm-hmm. Like either he's going to bully his way to the hoop. He's great with his left hand, or he's an amazing passer too. So he's going to find one of those open shooters out there. The thing is though, he's going to be matched physically by Zach Edey, obviously. So it'll be interesting to see just sort of, I doubt they're going to throw a second defender ever at him while Edey is guarding him. So I think NC State's going to have to sort of mix up how they do things offensively. And I think that could end up giving them a lot of problems on the offensive end.
Ryan, we've seen the various stats of just how improbable it is that NC State's in the spot that they're in, the various percentages, when they started off the tournament. But just how shocked are you to see the Wolfpack in the spot that they're in tomorrow?
I mean, man, it's incredible. I mean, this is why we love March. This is why March is what it is. And I saw a couple of tweets that was like, that semifinal game against Virginia in the ACC tournament, when they had to throw up Virginia missed a free throw that would have put them up 4. And then NC State came down and just threw up a miracle shot that banked in. And that's really the difference from them being in the Final Four and them not even making the tournament. Like that's just how crazy it is. But man, I mean, they finished the regular season. I think they lost either 4 straight or 5 straight games. And I mean, they just look like a completely different team. I mean, you see the way they play together. Burns has been just a revelation, one of the most fun players to watch in the tournament that I can remember. And, they got great guards around them that can all shoot and can all get buckets. So it's been amazing to watch, really.
There's a couple people on our chat room that say that I'm a UConn stan now all of a sudden, because I talked about how great they've been and dominant they've been. This is a tough matchup for Alabama. Is there anyone who can legitimately get in UConn's way?
It's an interesting matchup with Alabama. I've sort of been neutral on Alabama for much of the year. Just because of how really poor they've been defensively. But, they just want to push the ball as much as possible. They want to create as many possessions as possible. They want to shoot as many threes as they possibly can. And, UConn they've had a couple of games this tournament where they've been fine pushing the ball up and down the court. But, I really don't think that UConn wants to get in a track match with Alabama, because I think that's going to end up being their best chance to get knocked off. So it's going to be interesting to see like how they play this. I think that even with all the weapons that Alabama has offensively, that UConn is pretty confident in a half court setting that they'll be able to keep them out of the lane and contest threes and things like that. So. Yeah, I mean, I honestly think if the game gets going the right way, I think that the UConn-Alabama game might end up being closer than the NC State-Purdue game.
So if we do get Purdue and UConn, I mean, those are 2 1 seeds, and it would have gone chalk. We would get Klingon versus Edey. Obviously, they're a little bit different, but are you, again, DJ Burns could present him different challenges, but Klingon is maybe more like him, right?
Right. Yeah. I mean, honestly, I think, when the bracket came out, and I think throughout much of this year, a lot of people felt that the best 2 teams were UConn and Purdue. And, there's been a lot made. I think there's been a lot of Zach Edey hate going around, and maybe it's warranted, maybe it isn't. I don't think he's a particularly exciting player to watch because he's just so much bigger than everybody, and it's just you have to double team him or it's an automatic bucket, and he's going to get fouled quite a bit. You're going to see him shooting double-digit free throws every single game, basically. But when you have a guy like Klingon that can physically match up to Zach Edey the way that he can, I mean, that's, March is about matchups, and I don't, just thinking back on the tournament the last several years, and if that were to indeed happen, I don't know if there's a more anticipated matchup, like just positional matchup, than that would be. Because I think if you took of anybody in the country, if anybody in the country is going to be able to stop Zach Edey, I think it would be Donovan Klingon, just because he's pretty much that same sort of build. And then you get sort of a battle of, whose guard play is the best. And so, I mean, we'll see. They each obviously have a game to go, but man, that would be absolute cinema on a Monday night if that ended up happening.
Yeah, would. All right, so let's talk some of the goings on outside of the Final Four. Transfer portal is in full swing now. Look, I know you're a Kansas guy. What do you think about what the Jayhawks have done so far?
Yeah, I mean, they made some nice pickups. Riley Kugel, obviously coming over from Florida. I thought that he's a very solid player. And then Zeke Mayo coming over from South Dakota State. He's a Lawrence boy, so I'm sure he was jumping at the opportunity to come back and play for his Jayhawks. And so it's going to be interesting to see what Kansas does. Dickinson, I think most people believe he will be back for another year. KJ Adams already said he was going to come back. DeJuan Harris already said he was going to come back. So then you sort of get into a question of, Kevin McCullar's going to be gone, obviously, but does Johnny Furphy into the draft? Does he come back? I think I think he could use one more year just from a physical standpoint. I'm not sure if he could come in right away and compete on the NBA level, but man, if they get him back, adding some of these transfers in, they have a nice solid recruiting class. I mean, it's hard for me to say because, last year we were coming in with the same sort of thing. They had a very solid recruiting class. They had, probably the best player to ever enter the transfer portal in Hunter Dickinson. And, here we are. It doesn't even make the second weekend. So, I mean, there's a lot of things that happen between now and then, but, Bill Self, he had those comments, right, where he was saying he was sort of already looking forward to the next season before the season even ended. And I mean, hopefully that ends up paying off for them.
Ryan, what do you think about the possibility of Jerome Tang to Arkansas?
Yeah, that's an interesting one. It sounds like it's kind of between Tang and Chris Beard at the moment. Those are sort of the two names that I've heard the most. Sounds like Tang is kind of the front runner. I mean, it's going to be interesting to see what happens because, Doug McDaniel, who was, Michigan's best player last year, he just committed to Kansas State last week. And so that's going to be interesting to see, does he just follow Jerome Tang if he does end up going to Arkansas, and sort of how that shakes out. Listen, I mean, obviously he's paid his dues, right? You guys are very familiar, with him over the years in Baylor and all the great things he did. I mean, last year that was an incredible run that they put together with largely when he came in. I mean, there was nobody on that roster. And he took him all the way to the Elite Eight. And that's, I do really think he's a great coach. But I honestly, I really don't know how much of an upgrade, maybe you guys can chime in on this, how much of an upgrade do you think from a college basketball standpoint, like Kansas State to Arkansas? He was just sort of getting his feet wet there, and I felt like he was building a solid culture, and now he's just, going to go over there. But what do you guys think?
This isn't Nolan Richardson's Arkansas anymore. This isn't 40 minutes of hell. So I don't know. Like, I know it's the SEC and they're about to have more money and all those, they do have more money and they're about to have even more, when it comes to, all the stuff that's going to be flowing into the athletic department and that. Craig, I don't know if it is necessarily an upgrade from Kansas State like it would have been in the past.
I mean, I think it might be a slight upgrade, if anything. I don't think it's a major, there's a no-doubter. It's not
going to Kentucky or North Carolina or Duke.
It's not that at all. It's more along the lines of, I think, Louisville fans thinking about how they were versus how they are. I think Arkansas, there's some of that of thinking about how they were rather than how they are. But, yeah, I agree with you. I don't think it's a massive step up by any means. I don't think it's just a no-brainer like, oh, God, Arkansas came calling. I got to leave now. I think it more would be about the relationships or the leadership lack thereof at K-State and just some of the being on the outs there potentially that would push him. But, yeah, it's not a slam dunk in my mind.
Yeah, I totally agree with that.
Ryan, who is the biggest name in the transfer portal that you could see kind of shifting the balance of power?
Yeah, I don't actually think this particular class is quite as good as last year's transfer portal class. And again, we have, a few weeks here for things to sort of heat up a little bit more. There's a couple Stanford guys in there that have been pretty good. Maxime Reynaud, he's a center, 7-1 center for Stanford. A lot of people really like his game. You got John L. Davis from Florida Atlantic with, his coach obviously moving on to Michigan. So yeah, I mean, it's really tough to say here. AJ Storr is another one, from Wisconsin who, can just absolutely get a bucket. Tucker DeVries, we talked about last week, going to West Virginia. I don't. As I look at it, I don't really see, any one player that's going to make.
There's not a Caleb Love,
as you said. I don't really see that this year. Last year, I think you had a lot of big names, and again, we're pretty early in the process still, but there's a lot of nice pieces. I think. One thing that is kind of interesting is just the way, with the transfer portal having as many players as it does year in and year out, just thinking about, the way a decade ago that the best teams were constructed with all the one and done players for Kentucky and Duke and those types of things. It seems like that's, if you really want to get to where we are now in March, I guess in April, if you want to make it to April, it's not necessarily about, the freshmen that you get coming in. I feel like it's really taken a turn to where the 20th place guy in the transfer portal might, end up being better for a season than, somebody that's the 5th best freshman recruit in the country, just because of all the stuff and just becoming an adult and learning the playbook and things like that. So it's been really interesting to see just college basketball evolve like that in the transfer portal, the way it is now.
Okay, and last question. What are your thoughts on Bronny James and where I know LeBron's one of the closest friends is now the head coach at Duquesne, and there's some thought that maybe even going to wind up from USC to Duquesne, or maybe Eric Musselman can keep him, or do we even know how good he is?
Well, I think here's the thing is, right, he had obviously the health scare, last offseason, and I think that really, set him back. So I don't think it was completely fair to judge everything that we saw this season at USC. You mentioned Duquesne. For me, I would just like to see Bronny just, get away from home, get away from LA, get away from everything, and just let this kid develop. I mean, obviously, because of the name, there's going to be talk and hype and all that stuff. But I think, if he were to go to, I was thinking about this today, like a Gonzaga or somebody like that, Mark Few, who's turned out a bunch of solid NBA players over the last several years, and you play in, the WCC, where, there's not quite the amount of attention every single night that, some of these other programs have. I kind of think that would be an interesting fit. And especially with, how fast, few teams play and just how good they are offensively. I think something like that would be kind of interesting, but I mean, hey, you never know. I know he's testing the, the draft process to get some feedback, but yeah, we'll see. I mean, I think everybody would love to see him, right? Like just, start averaging, 17, 18 points a game, and we get to watch him in the tournament and that sort of thing. But, maybe that's on the cards, but I think just giving him a couple years to develop would be nice.
Ryan Andrade from rotowire.com. Go to RotoWire. They've got tons of stuff breaking it down, fantasy sports, gambling, all the different things you need numbers for. RotoWire does it. News. It's a fantastic website. I've been using it for fantasy sports for years. And we'll be doing a lot more with RotoWire here in the future. Ryan, have a great weekend. Enjoy the Final Four.
Yes, sir. Thank you, guys.
There we go. So, Ryan Andrade from rotowire.com. So, Craig, yeah, I mean, like, we get kind of drilled down and talk about the Super League and college football for a second, but tomorrow is the Final Four. So I felt we need to do at least one segment about it, if not two.
Yeah, I mean, it's cool. I'm not the biggest college basketball fan in the world. I mean, I do like the sport, but I'm excited to see this final weekend and see who emerges on Monday night as the national champion and bring this all to a close. Been a fun tournament. Not anything ultra crazy. Not anything that's just kind of turned everything on its head. I guess you would have NC State as the potential to continue to do that and ultimately do that if they were to win a national title, although the odds seem pretty unlikely right now. But, yeah, I'm excited to see these four teams. They've earned their way here. Should make for some good basketball. Is UConn this big unbeatable? I don't know, but they've looked really good so far and look like the clear favorite to hoist another national championship, but you never know when the Final Four begins. So glad to have his insight and glad that we're at the end point here and can see what's what at the end of the road. But four really good teams that are still involved here.
All right, let's take a break. When we come back here, we'll talk a little more college football news. And, we haven't really didn't dive as much into the Super League in the first segment. We'll do that a little bit more, especially since Craig wasn't here yesterday. I got to talk to Andrew Marchand yesterday. That was really amazing, and his insights on it and how College Sports Tomorrow kind of came about and what they're trying to do here. And then again, immediately as soon as this idea comes out there, like the rain on the parade, we don't even get 24 hours of,
right.
This is not because I don't the one thing I think is that if they took every other part of this, they would still never agree to break up the leagues the way that they would be broken up that way. It would just have to be kind of something different because they would, again, why would you go from 18 teams down to 10?
Let's talk about it on the other side.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what we're going to get into. So, I agree with you, though. But, that's part of what we're going to talk about.
All right, let's take a break. We'll be back right after this. This is 365 Sports.
It was broad daylight. I stepped into a gas station for 5 minutes to grab a snack, and just like that, my car was broken into. They made out like a bandit. My laptop, my phone, everything. I called my agent to see what could be done, and he restored my faith in humanity. My claim was processed so quickly, and I was able to recover my losses.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
Thank you for calling your local Marco's Pizza. We're turning up the heat with our new Reaper Cheesy Bread. Fresh, house-made dough is topped with a spicy cheese blend infused with jalapeno, habanero, and Carolina Reaper peppers. At only $5.99, this limited-time product is a hot deal. Add it to your order while you can. A Marco's team member will be with you shortly.
Marco's Pizza. Pizza lovers get it, and that offer on the Reaper Cheesy Bread is available right now at any of the 5 Marco's Pizza locations in Waco, including Belmead, China Spring, Robinson, Woodway, and Hewitt. Order online at marcos.com. Call for a pickup or delivery. Marco's Pizza is turning up the heat with their all-new Reaper Cheesy Bread with fresh, hot, house-made dough topped with a spicy cheese blend infused with jalapeno, habanero, and Carolina Reaper peppers, and only $5.99 and for a limited time only. Marco's Pizza, the fastest-growing pizza brand in America, 5 locations in Waco, and the new Reaper Cheesy Bread. Marco's Pizza. Pizza lovers get it.
Established in 2007 and independently owned, Alliance Bank Central Texas is committed to helping families and businesses meet their financial goals. From their tellers to their board of directors, they know the importance of superior service and competitive products. Customers have confidence knowing that their financial needs are in good hands. It's your bank, Alliance Bank Central Texas, with 2 Waco locations, 4721 Bosque Boulevard and 191 Archway Drive on Highway 84, and at AllianceBankTexas.com. Member FDIC and equal housing lender.
Stepping into a new pair of boots is great, but stepping into the boots of a U.S. Army officer can also add confidence and leadership skills to your son or daughter's career path. There are more than 150 occupational specialties to help them find the best fit for their future. See all the things your son or daughter can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
This is 365 Sports.
The Sikkim 365 app is brought to you by Allen Samuels Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat. Come by, let's be friends.
Welcome back, 365 Sports. Paul, Catalina, and Craig Smoak, Garrett, and Emery, and Jack also in the studio. I've only wanted to punch Jack in the face 3 times today, which is down from my normal of 12. So
I never stop wanting to punch him in the face, actually. So it's just like one long one for me.
Yeah.
It's not like 3 or 4. It's like just never ending, basically.
Yeah, just like a giant, like the fist gets bigger and the punch lasts longer.
The anger is just no top to it.
Yeah. I mean, I certainly get that.
He does a great job and takes some pictures and he does a great job and he's been all over spring ball. Still want to punch him, but no, he's a good member of this team that we've got going here.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Craig,
do we need a screen cap now so you can show the folks?
Yeah, look, right here.
Dusty.
Look, it's WrestleMania this weekend, so Craig is wearing his Dusty Rhodes American Dream shirt that he got from Homage, which is a great T-shirt site that we're trying to get a brand deal with. So
yeah, we'd love to. That'd be great.
We'd love to get a brand deal with them. I've got some shirts from them. They're all very comfortable and, in addition to being stylish. So there we go. So when they respond to my application, I'll say, like, listen, this is just a taste of what you can get.
I got the Bret Hart shirt ready to go. I got the Shawn Michaels ready to go. But yeah, that's a really good slight bit of free advertising here. Yeah, that's a really good clothing brand that I enjoy and actually have some shirts from. But yeah, WrestleMania is this weekend, and I wore the Dusty shirt because his son Cody Rhodes is got a big weekend ahead of him, and so looking forward to that this weekend. Get my mind off of other things and just veg out and watch some WrestleMania.
Yeah, I saw like some of the stuff The Rock was doing, and it kind of like it brings me back a little bit. And he's the villain now, right?
Yeah, he's a big bad.
The heel.
Yeah, he's a heel. Yeah, that's how they baby faces and heels. And yeah, he's very much heel Rock, and he's. I'll give The Rock a lot of credit, man. This is why he's going to be around till the end of time. He was, before these past couple months, probably as low star power, like not in familiarity, but as far as like his. Like, you remember a couple years ago when it just seemed like he couldn't do any wrong. He was in every big movie. Yeah. Every movie he was in was doing big business. He's Fast and the Furious, and he's doing all these other just like basically the same movie over and over again. But these big Hollywood blockbusters, and then he's got the XFL that he buys, and he's just kind of all over the place. And then Black Adam just stunk up the joint, and I think everybody just kind of got sick of The Rock.
Yeah.
And it was like, you're too nice all the time. Like, I don't know. People started to pick holes in kind of his game, and he was in a little bit of trouble as far as like where his star was.
I also think he got he kind of like lashed out a little bit because it didn't work. Like it was the first time that something he had.
Well, and then some of the people involved like talked about how he was, sort of like trying to take all of the shine and, make it all about him. And that rubbed people the wrong way because there's fans of other actors that were involved that all of a sudden they don't like The Rock now. So he had like all this stuff going on where all of a sudden we're like, stop putting movies out for a while. Like we've had enough of you for a little while. And then he comes back to WWE and it's too long, didn't read, but he shows up basically to take the WrestleMania main event without doing anything for it. And the whole big story is that Destiny's kid, Cody Rhodes, is it's his time. And The Rock seemingly just showed up and is like, I'll grab that WrestleMania main event, even though you just won the Royal Rumble, and even though this is like a year-long story that's been going on, and it makes way more sense for you to be involved. And to the WWE's credit, the fans really didn't like that. They did not want The Rock just rolling into town, and they wanted Cody Rhodes, and so they pivoted and turned it into where, The Rock is a bad dude once again, and he's aligned with Roman Reigns, and they'll have a tag match tomorrow night against Cody and Seth Rollins, and then on Sunday it'll be Roman and Cody Rhodes in a big-time main event. But, The Rock he's pivoted, and he's done really well because now he's The Rock again. He is as hot as he's probably been in a few years, super hot in the wrestling circles, and, they played that brilliantly because, man, when he first came back, there were not a lot of happy people, and now they're eating it all up, which is what the business is about. So well done to him and Triple H and all the crew for knowing how to respond to the audience and making – chicken salad out of what was some chicken-ish there originally.
Yeah, I don't think people liked Young Rock either.
I never got into that show. I never got into that show.
Yeah, no, it just I watched enough of it because I wanted to see like who they got to play the certain wrestlers from the 80s. Yeah. And then once I saw the actors and how they like that was my curiosity was like, how is Andre the Giant portrayed?
Right, I saw like 30 seconds of one episode, and as much of a fan as I am, I was like, no, this is not for me. It's just kind of corny. I mean, quite frankly, is what it was. Mm-hmm. Very much some Ric Flair casting, like the Iron Claw, like on some of the guys, where it's just like, that doesn't look like that guy. But anyways, he's pivoted and made for what is probably one of the most anticipated wrestling shows these next couple nights, as there has been in a really, really long time. So I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so Craig, we were talking about the Super League, and if you took the money and the collective bargaining, like if you took every single thing and they rubber stamped it and said, yeah, we're fine with the way that shakes out. The one thing I think that would bother the conferences, especially the ones that have worked so hard to get bigger, is that after they've done all that, they would just have to be like, well, now we're just going to be 10 teams like it used to be again, which I think most people would kind of prefer. I don't know. It might be split because some people are happy about the new arrangement. Some people are not. But I do think that, some of the old school conference stuff, like you heard from Sam Khan, would make a lot of the fans happy, because I do think that one of the things that expansion is going to lose a little bit is, or create more is the Oregon-Colorado situation, where for years the Pac-12 tried to make a thing out of Oregon and Colorado were like, yeah, we don't really care about each other that much. Like,
right.
We don't want to lose, but I mean, I don't think about Oregon like they used to think about Nebraska or, any of those, so it's how they used to think about Iowa State or Kansas or the other teams in the Big 8 and Big 12. So that to me is the one thing you'd have with this, where you'd have more regional things and more games against rivals you care about, plus constantly rotating like non-conference that would be, 3, or 4 really good games a year. So I don't know. That to me, I just think they would not give up.
I think that there is maybe some truth that could help set college football free, as far as, maybe some of the things involved in the overall idea that could be beneficial in creating the right solution in the long run. And maybe it is going more regional, but yeah, I think right now there's too many things blocking that. Primarily being, okay, you just added Texas and Oklahoma. Now the SEC is just going to give them right back, and they're going to pare down and kick a couple of other schools out, and they're going to do this. Why?
Mm-hmm.
To help the Big 12, to help reform the Big East. I mean, why exactly are they going to do this when they can just be who they are and have all of the brands that they have and be this monstrosity in a good way that has this immense amount of power? They're going to go and try to be as equal as possible with everybody else. Like, that to me just is a non-starter. I don't know why that makes any sense for the SEC or the Big Ten for that matter to do that with all of the moves they've made these last handful of years. And even beyond that, really. I mean, Missouri, and, there was the Colorado move previously, but I mean, that just right there just doesn't make sense of why you basically give up what you have for the benefit of everybody else. So that I can't get past that point, honestly, is what I can't get past. I do, though, love the idea. I mean, when you look at those conferences, they look great. I mean, the Pac-10 looks like the Pac-10 should look, and it looks like it makes a lot of sense, which doesn't fly in today's world, except for I think the SEC is the one conference, I keep saying this, where regionality still is in play. Like, it isn't in the Big Ten because LA should not be a part of the Big Ten in the traditional sense. But Texas and Oklahoma are still a part of like the pretty much same corner of the map. So I think the SEC's actually done a brilliant job, and the same would hold true with Virginia or North Carolina. Those schools, if they were to add them down the road. So I like the way that they're still regional, and they've just expanded their region, whereas the Big Ten's gone into other regions, and like there's flyover country and things that they're not quite making that as much of a bubble. Like the SEC's kind of got it perfectly arranged right now. So regionality can still be found. It's just not the regionality that we've come to expect in a lot of cases. So I think the SEC still checks that box. The Big Ten to a lesser extent, but I would love the idea of going back to more regionals, but I saw a Nebraska fan, and it was very much in passing, and I didn't bookmark it without flipping the page over, but I thought it was a great example, and I'm sure if I went and searched, I'd find 100 other tweets that are like this, but it was from a Nebraska fan who was like, oh, I have to go play these Big 12 schools again? Why would we want to do that? Why would I don't care about playing Iowa State. I don't care about playing so-and-so. The only reason we cared about the Big 12 was because we got to play Oklahoma. Even though I think that rivalry has been way overblown for, like they keep trying to make it a thing again whenever they played, and it's like has nothing of what it was attached to it anymore. But to that person's point of like, they got excited about the Big 12 because you could play Oklahoma. You could play Texas. Now, if you were to go by Sam's arrangement, it's just an idea. It's just he's using his imagination. It's not like this is the way it should be. But I know a lot of people like his ideas and hold true to kind of wanting that same type of regionality. So for that Nebraska fan and for a lot of other fans, regional's great. Oh, hey, I can drive to that game, but I don't care about playing Kansas in football anymore. I would rather play Michigan. And I think and I don't know, this is just really kind of just came to me in the last like 30 seconds. But, I think with our lives being so a la carte nowadays, that the days of getting people to sit down and just watch what's in front of them is over. And now you have to give them something, and you have to give them Ohio State like every other week to make them sit down and watch. Or if you're going to give them Iowa State instead, you have to give them the sports gambling to give them that rush that otherwise would get. As a fan, I don't need to gamble to enjoy sports. I can just sit down and watch a game and enjoy it. And just enjoy it as just something to watch. I don't need it to have like major stakes every single inning or every single result. I'm not built that way. I can just watch a baseball game and have that be game 36 of 162 and not really maybe mean that whole much. I just like watching baseball. I like having it on in the background. But there's a big audience now, and I think especially the younger crowd as they grow older, where you've been, and this is not old man get off my lawn, this is just what I think is kind of happening, is you've been so inundated with like jolt, 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 that you can't just sit down and watch a football game anymore without it having like some jolt to it. And therefore, fans need to see Michigan, Ohio State, Texas, Nebraska, and they can't get down with just watching, Iowa State or Baylor or Texas Tech or whatever. And so I think that from a fan standpoint is part of the pushback as well to the idea of a super league. Does that make sense?
No,
I wonder too, just with the money figures with the executives and with the schools, they're looking at it similarly of how do we get people to attend our games? How do we get the most TV ratings? Therefore, how do we get the most money? And you don't get it by just playing your regional rivals. You get it by, in their heads at least right now, playing the biggest matchups possible that will get everybody, sports gamblers, casual fans, diehards, others that otherwise wouldn't pay attention involved. I think that's what kind of is driving a lot of this, obviously, as well. So I don't know how you put that back in the box and you just go like, hey, don't you miss the Southwest Conference? Well, yeah, if you're, a certain age group and above, you do. We all have nostalgia kicks, that happen from time to time. And the idea of the Southwest Conference, I know, is a big dose of nostalgia for some people. But for most of your fans out there, those matchups outside of like A&M and Texas probably aren't drawing that many eyeballs outside of just the biggest fan bases. So, I think that's kind of something that's going to be difficult to put back in the box and have everybody go, you know what, regionality makes sense. And just being closer to home makes sense. I think we're so far past that point, which realignment has shown us with LA schools joining the Big Ten and so forth. But, that to me is just, it sticks out as part of the issue and this idea of going back to the way that it once was. I think that's just so far out of the box now that any idea that kind of goes back to that without everybody being on board somehow just seems like an impossibility. And right now, obviously, the SEC and the Big Ten don't appear to be on board with the idea that was floated, nor do the TV networks necessarily for that matter. So it's a starting point, but it definitely needs some more molding and some tweaking to get to a point where maybe everybody's on board with something along those lines.
Yeah, absolutely. I just I'm gonna miss the regionality, but again, I'm gonna miss it. But again, I'm not and we're gonna have some more sports betting content on the show coming up, just because I think part of it, and when I talked to Funded Sports Trader, the guys about it, I said, we've got 3 guys on the air who we've been in sports all of our adult careers. Seriously, this is the career that we've had. And the 3 of us collectively, when people could come up to us and go, hey, Iowa State's getting 4.5. Should I take that? And we're like, sure.
Yeah, I guess so.
How do you feel about it? Do you think they can win by 5 points?
Yeah, I could dabble in. I could dabble in that. It's not something that I was always just drawn to. No. I know people who it's just that's why they watch sports.
Yeah,
and I'm just not built that way.
I think a lot of the segments that we're going to do are going to be kind of educational for us. Teach us more about it, because I do think that we're going to get I don't want us to ever get to the point. Craig, you're Smokey might be too far gone. He's 106 years old. So, but as far as you and I, we're in the prime. Right? I don't want to be the guy who is well, I don't get that stuff, so I don't like it. No. I don't ever want to be that way. And so just because it's something I don't do, it's
designated hitter ruined baseball, like that. Yeah, I'm not going to sit there. I mean, I do wonder about sports betting and how much of a dangerous effect it could have. But it's very much ingrained into sports. But I also wonder about
cholesterol.
Right,
there's lots of things that are you have to wonder about. Everything's fine in moderation, and everything's fine if you do it the right way. And not everything, but it's not like murder is fine in moderation. I only did 1 this month, so it's good. But
it's trending down. That's a good sign.
Yeah. No. So but I mean, those things are good in moderation, like anything else. So, and they've got to be regulated and watched. I'm completely for states. I don't have a problem with states banning college prop betting right now until they can figure it out.
No, I think that's a good idea.
I think it's a good idea because
I think we've learned from LSU's Keyshawn Boutte. Yeah, I mean, I think that needs to be in play. I don't trust college kids not going.
Well, and I also don't trust the colleges at this point to be able to regulate it. That's the thing. The NFL has it so regulated. When guys do prop betting and do betting in sports, it's caught in a hurry.
Alabama baseball. We've already seen it happen, and it's not even really entrenched the way that it's going to be entrenched in a few years. So, that definitely – there needs to be some regulation. I always pause when I see somebody who's just no rules, just whatever, because typically they have an agenda. And so I think those are why – don't place rules on players. Well, gee, I wonder what you're trying to accomplish here. Let me guess. You probably work for a sports betting company that wants it to be free reign no matter. But, it's got its place. It's just it needs, like anything else, some level of regulation. And it is something that I think people are coming more to terms with. And even ESPN, you see them learning on the fly. Some of the times when they stumble over their own language of oh, shoot, we kind of crossed a line. And so it's part of the new world. But about realignment, I mean, it doesn't really have anything hand in hand with that, but it is just part of the overall, I guess, discussion.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's take Garrett, what break are we on?
We are on break 6. We're
okay.
Good.
Let's take that break 6 right now then. We'll come back. We'll talk a little bit more. This is 365 Sports.
Cars priced right both day and night. Average your car in Texas. Trucks built for you. Red, white, and blue. Average your car in Texas. Cars that zoom with lots of room. Average your car in Texas. Count on us, a dealer to trust. Average Richard Carr in Waco, Texas.
One size fits all. That may be all right for an adjustable belt or cheap sunglasses, but when it comes to your financial needs, no one wants a one-size-fits-all strategy. Ben Erlinson, your Edward Jones financial advisor, knows that his most important goals are yours. That's why he takes the time to understand your needs, knowing you. That's how Edward Jones makes sense of investing. Ben Erlinson, 100 North 6th Street in Waco, 254-759-8533. Edward Jones, member SIPC. Petty Clinic Men's Healthcare in Woodway is now proud to offer you men an exceptional weight management body sculpting product called semaglutide, also known as Ozempic or Wegovy. Semaglutide is an FDA-approved weight management medication. Once-a-week injections of this powerful medication offers an average body fat weight loss of 20% within the first year of treatment. In addition to body sculpting, semaglutide also normalizes blood sugars and has the clinical research proof of reducing blood pressure, cholesterol, stroke, and heart attack risk. If you're like most men and you have stubborn fat that will just not respond to typical diets and exercise, then help is finally here. Semaglutide, affordable, highly effective. Google search Petty Clinic Waco and reach out to the Petty Clinic team today for a free consultation with Dr. Petty to see if semaglutide is right for you. Go to pettycliniclowt.com.
Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
The 5 o'clock hour is sponsored by Edward Jones Investments with financial advisor Ben Erlinson, who'll navigate you through today's financial climate. Edward Jones, making sense of investing.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
Welcome back, 365 Sports. Paul Catalina, Craig Smoak, Garrett Ross, Emery Winter, and Jack McKenzie. First time we've seen Emery this week. He was in Oklahoma City, relaxing with the family. He, even Emery, as a dyed-in-the-wool Oklahoman, can only stay north of the border so long before his. Do you get itchy? Like, what happens?
No, there's a tornado.
Oh, yeah.
Tornadoes, yeah. Those.
Oh, so, yeah, there we go. Yeah. I mean, we're not immune to those here either. I guess it's a little bit better, but not by much. Also, Emery's got a lady friend that I don't know. When was the last time you saw her, Emery? A couple weeks ago. Well, I mean, yep. No wonder he made his way back down south. Love is in the air. It's springtime. Emery wanted to come back down, see his lady post Easter. Anyway, but I'm trying to read this open this article from John Wilner, who has Super League Super Flaw. But I've got to go
sign up for it.
Yes, I got to sign up for it or do another thing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, whatever you got to do. I mean, it's obviously an interesting talking point, and because of the story a couple of days ago, the main thing that's being talked about now, besides, I know there was a little slight update to the Florida State story.
Yeah.
I mean, that's, I'm sure if you're an FSU fan, the day-to-day minutia of that's very interesting. For me personally, it's not, as they just kind of wade their way through the court systems, and every day it's like another, like, a debate on who won this particular judgment. And so yesterday, I guess the ACC kind of won, but then the Florida State folks will say, but the Florida State side also won. And so there's just this back and forth.
Nobody wins until it's over.
Exactly right.
Nobody wins until it's over.
Right. Yes, exactly.
What you are doing right now, if you are saying one side or Clemson or Florida State or the ACC or ESPN, whatever, is you are cheering for a completed pass.
Right.
That's it. Not even necessarily a first down.
It's not the battles, it's the war.
Yeah, exactly. Like, oh, look, yay!
I know they all lead to the same place eventually,
Yeah.
but I mean, there is that ongoing as well. But yeah, the Super League, I mean, that phrase has been out there in the stratosphere now for a few years, and has really picked up more steam these last couple years, and especially now with just the disintegration of the Pac-12 and a new playoff system. And I mean, I think it was put most plainly by many people, and thought that I had as well the other day is part of the reason why this whole idea is not happening is because they just signed a new freaking contract, guys. Like, they just signed the new playoff deal. So I know it's not long-lasting and it's not a decade's worth of contract, but everybody is on the same page with the postseason. They just signed the contract for it.
Yeah.
So they're all on the same page together right now, but what the next chapter looks like, Super League, college football tomorrow idea, that part I think everybody is wanting to figure out now as well. And the reason why is because everybody's, for the most part, either wanting to see their school in an even more exclusive club, or those who aren't in that exclusive club or even those who are maybe at the bottom of the totem pole in that exclusive club are hoping that they remain in that club. And then those on the outside looking in are wondering what that means for them. And there's no answers right now. And so everybody's lobbing suggestions or their own version of answers and just wildly, coming up with ideas on what this all looks like at the end, because we're all so invested and so interested in this sport of ours that we love, college football, but it's just such a shell of itself right now in every single way other than on the field that it just leads to a lot of different kinds of feelings and a lot of people and a lot of our audience, because they're Big 12 country or G5 or whatever, that, they're really worried that this all leads to where they're not part of a party anymore. And then there's others who, like a Florida State's, wanting to go be in the nice club where they feel like they belong, and a lot of this hinges on that result. And so there's just a lot of plates in the air right now, a lot of plates in the air, and nobody knows if they're going to all come crashing down and shatter, or if we're going to be able to catch a bunch of these and then set the table for this new era of college football where everybody has a seat, or if it's going to be a bit more exclusive dining. And so there's a bit of like, a bit of survival mode, I think, is what you would say. There's a lot of survival mode going on right now, and just the reactions to certain stories and the thinking about certain things.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so John Wilner, friend of the show, on quite a bit, says, obviously, and we'll talk about this in the top 5 in just a second, but, ESPN also just signed this deal, so they're not going to just tear it up. They just agreed to it. And again, I don't think this is intended to happen soon.
No.
But even when it does happen, his point is 80 is a huge clunky number. That's
what Bob Thompson said as well.
Yeah,
Bob Thompson, who we've had on from the very beginning of all this, Smokey came across him on Twitter, and we started having him on 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And there were times in this last few go-rounds with him where he always left like this ... at the end of what he was talking about, and he never filled in the blank. And now I think you're seeing it, like the whole he said without saying it, and I think he even said it at times without saying what the exact solution would be, of like there's more trimming that's going to go on, or there's more of a evolution of the teams involved at the highest level and all that's going to go and be involved. And so that's always stuck with me, even though he never said exactly what that would look like. And I don't know if he could have said, if we even asked him what that could have looked like or what is going to look like, but he clearly knows kind of what's in the water right now. And so, that's always just stuck with me, of kind of how he had this sort of ominous tone. And I still don't know quite what it means, but when you see the pushback of, for example, like him saying yesterday or the day before of 80 is way too many, it's like ding, like it's probably not going to be that many, and this isn't going to be the solution. But like I said earlier, it's somebody at least throwing something out there, and it's obviously groups of people coming together and saying, well, they're not giving any answers, so we might as well throw our 2 cents in there and maybe have it arranged this way. But yeah, there's just some big holes in this, and I think one of those is just the amount of teams involved. The money distribution, the TV contracts, the fact you just signed the new playoff agreement. What does the SEC want? What does the Big Ten want? I mean, there's numerous holes in this idea. Not that they couldn't be filled in, but it's just right now unrealistic on the surface that it's just going to be as is. And so it's fun food for thought. But yeah, there's probably not everybody involved, and SMU still gets to come along, and there's 80 teams and all of that. That's, I think, probably the part that most people are having the hardest time sort of, I guess, swallowing right now with this idea is there's a lot that don't believe that there's going to be that big of a party when it's all said and done. Yeah. And I don't know what it's all going to look like. None of us do, but yeah, there's definitely that sentiment that 80 is too many teams for this concept.
Yeah, I mean, I like the whole idea. I mean, I really do.
Yeah.
I love it. I just, again, I'm not going to get excited about it because
no, it's not happening right now, and it's probably not going to happen in the way that it's written right now either. But it's better than what others are offering up, which is in some cases a big bag of nothing. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it's fun food for thought, and it's fun for the imagination, and it's maybe where it eventually leads to something like this. But I just think that putting out there, it's not like this is happening.
Yeah.
No, it's like, here's an idea, react as you will. Everybody's reacted. Some people like it, some people don't. And, we'll see how it continues to evolve or what other ideas come to the table.
And I think...
But right now, they've got a 12-team expanded playoff for the next few years. That we do know.
What I do think needs to happen, though, is...
12 or 14?
It's 12 for the next two.
Okay, and then it's 14. Then maybe it's 14.
Or maybe it's 16. We didn't even know. It could
maybe it's the college football tomorrow idea. Again, we don't know, but just it's not happening right now.
And I do think that the big two leagues, the Super Two, trademark Craig Smoak, need to come to agreement on here or understand is, look, the lawsuits that are happening are not going to stop happening until you reshuffle the deck. And I think that they know that. I just don't think there's enough concern for what's going to happen below them, because whatever lawsuits happen, the SEC and Big Ten are going to be all right. Like, they don't, okay, we're going to have to do more money. We're going to have to do this. Yeah, whatever. We're always going to have money. We're always going to have that. So they don't have that concern for what happens to the rest of college athletics when lawsuits eventually decimate it, because courts don't have any kind of, none of this, that's not gone the NCAA's way. There's not a court out there that's really going, well, we just got to have it this way because that's what's better for the world order. No, I mean, the reason they're losing all these things is it's straight up and down unconstitutional. The student athletes had to forgo rights that everyone else has. That's what keeps happening. And so because of that, these are going to keep happening. And then the NCAA and the member institutions keep going to Congress and say, hey, write us a bill. And what Congress is saying is, no. You come up with a new thing, and then we'll write a bill to protect that new thing that fits within the bounds of the Constitution of the United States. But right now, all it's going to be is, we'll do this, and this will be the restriction, and this and that. Well, if you're going to change the governance structure altogether, what good is a bill going to do if they're going to have to go back and do it again? And you're going to keep getting sued and keep getting sued and keep getting sued and keep getting sued. So the lawsuits, which is what one of the guys from College Sports Tomorrow said was, look, these are going to eat up college athletics eventually. This is something that gets them out of court and keeps them out of court for the long term. And even though, and this is where the rubber meets the road, so even though the big two conferences would have to give up some ground here, it's also giving up ground to maybe make a little less money in the short term, but keep it perpetually going in the long term. That's their point, and I tend to agree with that, but getting people to understand that in the way that corporate America works now is impossible. Absolutely impossible. You need look no further into large companies that don't pay big salaries, and then when somebody comes time up for a raise, they just let them go, and they'll take the loss on the turnover, which is always bad, especially when you let experienced good people go, to just train somebody new and move them on because they just see what do we have to do in quarter two this year? How do we have to get under that line, as opposed to what about all the quarter twos that you're going to have as long as you're a company? Wouldn't you like to keep that consistent, as opposed to being able to go to the boardroom and be like, look, I saved the company this much money this quarter. Give me my bonus. Well, that's how these things work. And big-time college athletics is no different. it's all just numbers on the balance sheet for them. And for the Big Ten and the SEC, it's about, okay, what is the number that is going to be on the check that we cut everybody? Not what is the number going to be on the check in 2035? How much are we going to have to really divvy these things up, or how much are these things going to hurt us? We just know that in 2027, we're getting $90 million.
Yeah, man, there's a bill due. I just think that the sooner they can all come to grips with what they're going to have to eat and then move on from that, the better, so that we can be less lawyers and, network experts and more of just college football fans. I mean, I don't know, am I crazy here? Yeah. But there's just way too much. I mean, I get that it's good for content and things like that. I love realignment chatter, and when it's valid, I love the Super League talk, like when it's, ideas proposed, or even if it's just coming up with your own ideas. Like, I love all of that. But, like, I think the leaders have to understand, like, there's so much of this now, though, that it's like it's overlapping the entire sport. Like, people aren't even talking about the game as much as they're talking about, like Florida State's lawsuit or whatever. And I do think there's definitely entertainment value in that. But, yeah, they ultimately are going to have to come to some sort of a stop sign in the road where they can unload some of these issues that have been plaguing the overall sport now for the last 2, 3, maybe even beyond that number of years, and come to, a solution. And solution is going to be writing a big check, like, as a result of these multiple lawsuits. But to what size will that be, and how does that all, like, affect each individual conference? I have no idea. I also know that some of the numbers being thrown out there are pre-negotiation and settlement numbers. So when you see like $4 billion, well, I think of the UFC writing the check that they wrote just a couple of weeks ago, and that was supposed to be this like multi-billion-dollar lawsuit. And then in the end, it was a pretty hefty number, but it wasn't anywhere close to what it was originally and potentially could have been. So the fighters that were suing won, but not to the extent that they could. So, yeah, they're going to have to write a big check, these schools, these conferences, but it's probably not going to be as dire as what we see thrown out there by lawyers and such right now. But, yeah, rent's going to come due, or the bill's going to come due, and how well set up is everybody to eat that chunk of money that they're all going to have to individually dole out? Like, what chunk of money are we talking about? Yeah, I don't know. I just do know that, yeah, the government's not going to swoop in and help you and make this all, good and rosy and clean and all of that. It's a messy deal, but it's also the result of having – basically everybody sitting at a stop sign for the last 5 decades, and now all of a sudden everybody's got free reign to go punch the gas, and there's no speed limit because there's no rules now, and so there's crashes everywhere. And it's not surprising because you held up traffic this entire time rather than design a roadway for everybody that made sense, student athletes, coaches, schools alike. You wanted to have one exclusive lane for everybody to drive through in their Rolls Royces, and everybody else had to walk, and now everybody's got their vehicles, and traffic's a mess. And look no further than the NCAA for the root of it all. But there's so much extracurricular going on that the solution, when the time comes, and there's lots of ideas out there, it's going to be a whole new world, and it already is kind of turning into that in some ways already.
Some interesting news here from John Rothstein on our friend Jerome Tang. He has gotten offered a contract extension by Kansas State, and he just signed a contract extension after year one.
Well, and after the incredible year they had. Oh, wait.
Yeah.
I mean, they had a fine year, but, man, that's when you just love being a college coach who's got some success behind you and is one of the, hot names out there, is that Jerome Tang doesn't have to move off his seat, and he's going to get a contract extension from Kansas State just because Arkansas might be interested. Isn't that a hell of a thing?
Yeah.
Like, that's awesome for him. That's awesome for him. And, good for K-State for going to bat to try and make sure that he's their guy for the future.
And still, there's no determination made on that. He still might.
No, he still doesn't have to take it.
Doesn't have to take it.
He's just sitting there. He's not even doing anything. He's sitting there. Didn't have a big grand follow-up to last year, but has done some really nice things and is a really good basketball coach. And obviously a lot of K-State people don't want to lose him. But without even moving a finger, I mean, just Arkansas alone being open has generated, just like all these other jobs, generated these new contracts for guys just simply because you were named in rumors. Mm-hmm. So that's all I'm saying. It's a hell of a gig, man. A hell of a gig.
Yeah, absolutely.
That'd be really interesting if he took that Arkansas job, though. That's going to be something to watch throughout this weekend. Yeah. I'm fascinated.
Absolutely. When we come back, the top 5.
Celebrate the spirit of adventure during the Jeep Celebration event. Join us at Allen Samuels in Waco as we roll out incredible deals on rugged and reliable Jeep vehicles you love. Seize the moment and drive home in the new Jeep of your dreams. With special financing options and exclusive offers, there has never been a better time to explore the world of Jeep. Hurry in, the savings won't last long. Visit AllenSamuelsDCJ.com and see them firsthand only at Allen Samuels in Waco. Let your adventure begin.
Come by, let's be friends.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be a part of the Waco community. We're a small family business right here in Central Texas, and our goal is to bring down the cost of healthcare while maintaining high quality. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important, and unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. That's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through the difficult time. We offer premium MRIs just like a hospital with state-of-the-art technology and specialists, but you'll pay less. Sometimes thousands of dollars less, whether you're using insurance or not. At Ideal MRI, we accept most insurance and there are no hidden costs. Even offering financing if that's needed, everything included in the price, and you'll not get something as a surprise in the mail later on. If you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. They'll know. You can schedule an appointment safely from home online in minutes at idealmri.com or give us a call, 833-IDEAL-MRI, idealmri.com.
TFNB Your Bank for Life is the official local bank of Baylor Athletics. Find out why more Central Texas are making TFNB their bank for life. Sign up for our Edge checking and savings accounts to earn interest or cash back. With 5 convenient locations and an award-winning mobile app, banking has never been easier. TFNB Your Bank for Life. Member FDIC.
You want to know why Stonewood Dental is so successful? Listen to what happy customers have to say.
Pleasant. It's different than any other dentist office. I really feel like they care. And it's not that you're here for 2 hours waiting on someone to take care of you. It's quick and easy, and I bring my kids, and my kids love being here too. They really love the treasure box. Staff is really nice and accommodating, real friendly. You feel more like home. It's not sterile looking. Everybody has their own personalized rooms with decorations and decor, and they'll even have a blanket for you when it's cold. I've recommended people to actually come here, and they are patients now. I really love it here. It feels like family.
Learn more, stonewood-dental.com.
It's time for Paul Catalina's Top 5, brought to you by Texas Beef House. Where's the best beef in Texas? Your house when you order from Texas Beef House. Unleash the flavor of Texas-raised Wagyu. From our pasture to your plate, TexasBeefHouse.com.
Top 5 roadblocks to the Super League, which we've gone through a lot of them. I just thought we'd, put it in the... Put a nice little bow on it today, and then we can move on past this until 2035 when it actually happens.
Yeah, I don't know if it'll be that long. I do wonder, though, for people if, there is a level of revolt coming, which is some of this stuff of just enough already with this Super League and just do it. I think that's where I've been for a couple of months now. All right, cool. Sankey doesn't like this new idea. Okay, then just do whatever you're going to do. But I guess they got to let contracts run their course and lawsuits as well. And then is it too much to just want to get to a point where everybody knows where they are and they're just there?
Yeah.
And then it's not like every day is they could be leaving or they could be, you know what I mean? That's what I hope we find a spot where everybody just kind of knows what the future holds for once, because nobody's known that for what seems like quite a while now.
Top 5 roadblocks to the Super League. Number 5, lawsuits. I mean, look, part of the thing about getting the NCAA to do this is, one, they have to figure out if they're going to win or lose these lawsuits, which they're probably going to lose. 2, they have to get a lot of people on board to be like, hey, let's move on from this so that we can get rid of these lawsuits. 3, even if they do this, it's not going to stop a lot of the lawsuits. Like the back pay one, getting sued for back pay, that one is going to be very interesting to see.
That I mean, that's the one that we were kind of referring to. That's the one that could be like multi-billion dollars. Again, I think that's obviously not going to be the real number when all is said and done. That's why you negotiate and you mediate and you come to a number that is going to make sense and you can all agree on. But yeah, of all the big bad looming threats, like this seems to be that one in particular of the back pay and how much schools could be held accountable for. And it wouldn't be like, well, we're in this league, we don't have to know. It'd be like everybody's got to pony up a certain amount of money. That's the one that I think's got a lot of people clutching their pearls right now. But yeah, there's a bunch of other ones too. Yeah.
Number 4, fear of the unknown. No one's going to say this out loud, but part of the reason that a lot of people wouldn't sit down and even consider it, like when you hear, the SEC head coach say, his AD says it's DOA, it's dead on arrival. I guarantee you a lot of that is just because you've got a lot of people like, nope. No, I don't know. There's too many questions. I'm not going to – I know this. Like, I can understand this. I can wrap my arms around this right now, no matter how ugly and chaotic and bananas it is. I understand this. Super League, I don't understand. I don't understand why we do this. Like, why should we have to do this? And, those are the things. The fear of the unknown. And I think a lot of things good don't happen because people fear the unknown.
Yeah, I mean, I'll disagree slightly here. I mean, I think clearly college football is searching for answers, and none of the answers are the traditional methods. Like, we're not going back to the BCS, so the unknown's all that's out there. That's the only thing that can be done now at this point is really the unknown, because you're not going to start reducing, save maybe reducing conferences or what have you. But that, again, is another whole arm of speculation and discussion that's it's a topic unto its own. But, I mean, I think everybody does have a fear of the unknown here, Paul. They have a fear of how much that lawsuit we're talking about is going to cost. They have a fear of how many more lawsuits and how much that's going to cost. They have a fear of, depending on what league you're in, what your league looks like on the other side of this. But I disagree. I don't think it's a roadblock to this particular idea. I think it's more or less probably the other things involved here, but the unknown, you're going to have to embrace that now. And if you aren't, then you are really just, a complete buffoon, because there's no room to sit there and hold tight now at this point in college sports. If you haven't realized that already, if you were fighting the battle to stop player pay, and if you were fighting the battle for NIL, and if you were fighting the battle for this or that, like, you've lost all those battles. So the unknown is about to become the known, and you better get used to it.
Number 3. TV contracts. Maybe this should be number 1, but number 3, the television contracts. You're not going to get, especially with the college football playoff, and John Willer said this, ESPN is the only one who has it right now. Nobody else bid on it, really. Or if they did, it wasn't, they were lukewarm to the idea, and ESPN got it for a lot cheaper than it could have been had there been multiple media partners in the bidding. There were not multiple media partners in the bidding. So why is ESPN going to do anything until the SEC's contract is over, and Fox until the Big Ten's contract is over? Then once those things are over and the things start to shift a little bit more, maybe we'll see something.
Yeah, I mean, but at least for the next few years, there's a TV contract in place. So even if this idea was to be well received by everybody, I suppose they could, rush hour it, but it's not going to start in the next few years because they've got the playoff set up, and ESPN's got that playoff. And they could, of course, sublease games or whatever ideas have been thrown out there. I know Bob's mentioned that as well. But, yeah, there doesn't appear to be an appetite for these other networks to get involved, at least in those early round games. And so that is, I think, a very interesting point on its own. But, the TV networks are going to be the ones that have to agree to this as much as the SEC and the Big Ten do. And I don't know right now why ESPN in particular would want to go down that road.
Yeah, absolutely. Number 2, university presidents. Now, the one on the right, actually, I think she'd be kind of game for this. I think she's, of course, she's on the transformation committee and all that. I think she'd be one that'd be more apt to understand it. But for a large part of university presidents, they don't get any of this. E. Gordon Gee's on the committee, and he gets it. But another Bob Thompson quote, and he has this pinned on top of his Twitter timeline at the day the Pac-12 officially fell apart was, from his experience, and this is true, university presidents don't know anything about this. And they're fed certain pieces of information that they kind of go, okay, this is what we're going to do. And then at the end of it, most of them don't know because this is not their area of expertise. And I'll give you a second example. Listening to the reading the notes of the Cal board meeting when it was, UCLA leaving, you had a lot of people who were, nuclear physicists that had never thought once about conference affiliation, asking very basic questions that you would have hoped they could have skipped past in resolving it. So the university presidents, not only that, there's just so many of them that have to agree to this and get on board that you're going to have way too many cooks in the kitchen for this to go smoothly.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how much they obviously have some say. I don't know what the extent is compared to, they've got to sign off, obviously, but yeah, they're not really in the weeds on this decision-making process. And so, yeah, that's another layer of bureaucracy and people that you've got to sign off, or that have to sign off. But, yeah, I don't know about being the second biggest roadblock, but certainly there's a lot in their way, and this could be part of that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And number one, the Big Ten and the SEC, or the SEC and the Big Ten, as it's written here. Look, they're not gonna budge on this until they're made to, and I don't see a thing that's gonna make them. So until they figure out how to make the most money for the SEC and the Big Ten and keep their conferences the way they are and keep the brands together the way they are, none of this is going to happen. But I would just like to hear what they think of it. And look, I don't think the Big 12 is all that keen on it either. So leaving them out of it is probably a little unfair, but these are the two that are calling most of the shots right now.
I don't think it's unfair because I don't think the Big 12 is going to be a swing vote one way or the other.
No.
I mean, they could be a swing vote, but they're not going to be a determining factor necessarily the same way that the two listed here are going to be. And, yeah, they are, along with the TV networks, the ones that are going to be controlling or already do control the most sway.
Mm-hmm.
That's not going to change anytime soon. So, yeah, I mean, without the TV networks on board and without these two right here, it's not what it's advertised to be, which is a national college football playoff. Then again, if they were to go off and do their own thing, like some people have assumed they will for years now, or feel like they still might do, then I don't know that that's a national playoff either. If you're leaving out, various schools across the country, but there's no denying wherever you sit on what could be possible and what's not possible. Like whatever's possible that includes everybody is going to have to include these two first and foremost, and they've got the most sway and the most money and the most eyeballs and all of that, and that's not changing. So yeah, between those two and the TV networks, I mean, those are the folks that are going to be deciding this, and right now I don't see a reason for those two in particular to go along with this one idea that's not, guaranteed by any means, and obviously is not gaining a whole lot of traction, is already like losing it if anything. But whatever other example or what tweaks they make to this particular idea or what other ideas crop up, then yeah, these two are going to have to be involved, have to give the green light. And you just hope if you're the Big 12 or any of these other conferences that there is going to come a point where everybody is on the same page altogether, and it's not them two going off into the distance on their own. But remains to be seen how all it's going to work. That's why we continue to wonder ourselves. But, yeah, it's not happening without their approval.
All right, that's going to do it for us. And, again, a little bit of housekeeping for Monday. They're closing roads down here. There's going to be 1 billion people in Waco. We don't know about our ability to actually get in this building normally on Monday. We just don't know. Our intent, obviously, would be to do a show that day. But if you don't see a show on Monday, no, it's because the sun god Ra apparently has taken over this town, and we are kind of stuck.
Have you mentioned why? It's the eclipse.
It's the eclipse, yeah. The eclipse is here.
Eclipse.
Waco is apparently the best place to see it in all of America, in the totality. We're all of our hotel rooms are sold out. Craig, I don't know if you saw, you might have, it was right before you walked in, there was a group of about 50 people taking a tour of downtown Waco that we never see in any other circumstance. But they're already here. It's Friday. The eclipse is on Monday. So 3-day weekend. in the 254 for a lot of people. And so we don't, like, I'd like to tell you we'll be here at 3 o'clock. I know that we won't be here at 1 o'clock for triple option because that's during the eclipse, and I, kind of want to see it. And 2, that's when it'll be craziest. Maybe things will release a little bit once it has passed. We don't know that, though. And there's a lot, again, even if it does, the roads are still closed all around us. So that's kind of the issue we're going to have. If you see us on at 3 on Monday, the offerings were made. And obviously a virgin was thrown in a volcano or something, and people went on and about their way. Or the roads are blocked and we can't get here. So that's what we're kind of dealing with right now. There's never been anything like this that's happened here before, where this many people are in town for one event. So we have no idea how to prepare for it. None. It's just,
we don't need to explain it. We'll be here maybe. We might not be here on Monday. You get it. And yeah, it's a once in a lifetime type of thing, I guess. And there's a lot of traveling parties coming this way. I know it out in Tyler as well as another spot where I'm from. Have my mom works very closely with the city, and same thing, jam-packed hotel rooms, been booked up for months. There's all these new people coming in, by the thousands, new people coming in. I don't know. I'm not a part of the group that would do this, travel to East Texas to go watch this, but there are definitely thousands of people that are interested in it. So it may block us from coming to work on Monday. It might not. I guess you'll see when you tune in at 3 o'clock on YouTube on Monday.
Yep. Absolutely. So thanks for watching whatever you do. 365 Sports tonight on the CW locally here in Waco. Have a nice weekend, everybody. We'll see you on Monday or Tuesday. We don't know.